Hello and welcome to Fresh Faced Comics, the comic book podcast where a lifelong comic book reader guides his friends through the world of comics for the first time. My name is Joey Morgan, the aforementioned lifelong reader. With me, as always, is Jacob Licklider, the aforementioned newbie.
Happy 2023, everybody!
Yeah, Happy New Year! Even though we are still recording this in the hellscape that is 2022, Happy New Year! Yeah, this is our
Happy
first
New Year.
episode of the new year, so
Uh,
that's
I, yeah. And today we are doing something very interesting to start the new year, but I'm trying to avoid saying the title for the first minute of the episode.
you know,
Because
fair enough.
to
Fair
avoid
enough. I
certain
mean, it's also going to
things.
be the first word of the title of
Yes,
the episode.
this
We
is
really
true.
can't do anything about that, can
Well,
we?
you could do you could put the author's name first, just for this one, at least just on YouTube, to avoid their algorithmic stuff.
I
Uh,
mean, I don't know. I guess we'll see. I don't know. I feel like there are like reviews of the films and animated stuff that like go by just fine through YouTube's algorithm. I think
yeah,
as long
yeah.
as these two words are together, we can say that we are now over a minute in. And so we can say we're covering Suicide
Suicide
Squad Volume
Squad.
1, Trial by Fire by John Ostrander. This being the first solo series ever of the Suicide Squad.
And
And
the
I'm
first,
so
I'd
excited to
argue the first
talk
like
about this.
real appearance of what the squad is. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
because
Because like
like,
back when they were first created, they had a very small appearance before this, and they were by no means what they are now, you know. Whereas like you look at something like Marv Wolfman's Teen Titans, and you're like he took the core concept of the Teen Titans and retooled it. Here it's like
and took
here
a lot of the characters, whereas
yeah
this,
here John Ostrander just took the name and was like
yes,
let's do a new Suicide Squad and make it something really really interesting. So I'm very excited to talk about this for a myriad of
yes,
reasons, but specifically because I think I mentioned this last episode too. But when I first started collecting comics way back when, before I started doing like collected editions or anything, before I knew what collected editions were, one of the first series that I got interested in, and I can't even remember why I got interested in it, but I started trying to collect every single issue of the Suicide Squad. And so I have a fair bit of the original Suicide Squad run by John Ostrander in single issues as they originally are before they got jacked up in price because this was well before the first movie came out.
and the team
So
became the book became popular. Um,
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think they started to get more popular when Arrow started to do them because they had that.
oh
I think
right,
that
yeah.
Arrow did them briefly, and they had a weird a kind of Harley Quinn cameo. um,
Wasn't that Margot Robbie doing the voice? I
no,
think.
no, I believe that was Tara Strong.
Ah,
I no,
interesting,
yeah, because Margot Robbie wasn't even cast yet in the role.
interesting.
Yeah,
Because
because
I
I
know
think
that was
that
like around the time of the film, like the film was like
let's see, because
announced.
Arrow season 2 would have ended in like 2014, and it was towards the end of season 2. So I think that was like just before Robbie was cast.
Right. So just as like the film was being put into development
Yeah.
and really being made, yes.
Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, we're talking about Suicide Squad. It's a series that's very near and dear to my heart. I for this for the reread for this episode, and I'll do it for the next episode too. I actually read like all my single issues, the really like faded color versions of from the '80s. And it just made me very nostalgic. I may be more favorable to these issues than I probably should be. If for nothing else, just because I loved this experience. I haven't reread these in a really long time, and I think there's even an issue in the next volume that I've never actually read before. So
Ooh,
yeah,
so you'll be fresh faced for
yeah, for
one
once.
issue.
So yeah, but anyway, let's get into this. Non-spoiler section first, as always. Jacob, what is Suicide Squad about?
So it's actually kind of interesting because my conception of the Suicide Squad was a bit closer to typical superhero heroics, and that is not what this book is, and it's all the better for it. Like
Okay, so what were you expecting going in?
I was expecting kind of just like a bunch of villains being forced to do superhero stuff,
Okay.
basically.
Hmm.
I'm very glad that that's not what I got,
Yeah.
because this is John Ostrander has this idea of let's take a bunch of characters who no one really cares about, throw them into a room, and force them to do the U.S. government's dirty work.
Mhm.
And that is
It's such a great concept.
it's utterly brilliant. This is 1987, so middle of the Reagan years. Like comics at the time, politically, you can just feel the seething anger towards the Reagan administration
Mhm.
throughout the entire book.
Especially like what, like a year or no, couple years after Dark Knight Returns,
Yeah,
like
like
the comic that set off political aggression within comics.
well, I wouldn't say it necessarily set it off because there's definitely examples of political aggression in comics before, but probably never so pointed and
Made it
angry.
more okay for mainstream writers though to do it.
Yes, yes. Unless your
And in
name
this
was
case,
Dennis O'Neill.
true. But John Ostrander here, while he's telling this really fascinating story, is also taking pot shots at the Reagan administration at the same time.
Oh,
And
like
it's
every page,
yeah,
every page. I mean, like I will say, the first issue of this collection is kind of a weaker issue. Not bad by any means. It's just very
it
exposition
feels
heavy.
very necessary, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's necessary, and I get it, but it's kind of long.
Yeah,
There are bits
yeah,
of it like, but like Reagan is drawn as a character at points in this.
yeah.
And Ostrander just takes the pot shots to his face, and I think that anger really makes the comic work, as well as honestly the fact that this is a book that the cast of characters is a rotating cast. Like the team that you get at the start of the book isn't exactly the same team you get at the end. You have characters who sit out a mission or two, who are kicked off the team, brought on. Some are killed. Like this is a book with a body count, so anyone could probably die.
Oh yeah.
As well as like let's actually explore a bunch of characters that at this point no one probably liked. Like nobody was clamoring for Captain Boomerang to be a major character in an ongoing comic book.
And nowadays, he's probably more associated with being part of the Suicide Squad than he is as a Flash villain. How he began. Yeah, I mean, he's still like a Flash villain, of course, but like I would say, like the first thing I think of when I think of Captain Boomerang is him on the Suicide Squad, right alongside Deadshot, who's typically a Batman villain. And it's great. Like I love how, especially early on here, you really do feel the sense that like Ostrander is taking these more obscure characters and deciding to go one of two ways with them. Either use them as cannon fodder to shows just how dangerous these missions are and what they're actually doing here, or take these obscure characters and do something really interesting with them and take them into new places.
Yeah, well, it's also, and those who are taken to new places could easily become cannon fodder. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they don't really hold back on that.
it's also, I don't want to call it a very adult book, but it is a very adult book. Like, I don't think a little kid would want to read this and probably get something out of it as like an older audience, like because Ostrander has a story to tell, and I believe he stays on for the entire run of this initial Suicide Squad.
Yeah. The initial run is entirely by him, and at the same time, he was also doing Firestorm, a couple other smaller titles, and he would write like pretty much all the tie-ins.
Yeah, so he wrote a lot.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, I think it's something that may have gone under the wayside because the Suicide Squad nowadays, you think Harley Quinn is the headliner,
which is still a fairly new thing. It was 2011 that she was first added to the team.
So 11 years ago, but like this is before she's invented. What's amazing, especially about this first volume, while it's clearly set in the DC universe, there really is only like outside of the squad itself, there's like one larger DC universe character who really shows up. Well, one group of larger DC universe characters who shows up for one issue, and that's it. Like the Justice League does not show up. You don't get any of these characters, at least in this first volume. I believe
we do start incorporating it a lot more in volume 2, into the larger DC universe.
which isn't a bad thing. It's just it's really really smart to bring everything together and be so isolated, as well as the stakes for all of these issues are honestly kind of low, and I really love that. Like they really fit what the point of the team is in terms of low stakes. Like these are all essentially espionage stories at their heart, and I love that aspect.
Yeah,
And
definitely. I agree.
it's
But
something I wish the 2016 Suicide Squad film played with a bit more than it did,
yeah,
among other
yeah,
things.
because you did watch it for this episode,
Yes,
and you had never seen it before, right?
I hadn't.
You had never seen like any Suicide Squad adapted media before, right?
I had technically seen that season of Arrow that they're in
Okay,
the
that's right.
end.
They were in like the one episode. Yeah.
Yes, but
Um,
that's it.
what was that
Uh,
team? They did Deadshot and Bronze Tiger on that one, right?
I believe so.
I think so.
Uh,
Yeah. And
yeah,
then I think wait, was Plastique on that one too?
I don't remember.
She might have been. I can't remember the full team, but I know it was like 3 or 4 people, and they didn't make it huge.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, let's get into our Twitter questions for today. First off, we have two from our friend Rachel at Shells Seashells. What are they? Some kind of Suicide Squad? Yes, they are. They absolutely are. They're
Yes.
going on missions that may as well be suicide. Yeah. She also says, why do the people credited first on the cover have their first names in lowercase, while the people credited below them have their first names in all caps? I don't know.
Yeah,
It's an odd decision.
It's a weird choice.
I hadn't noticed that until she pointed that out, and I'm kind of mad about that.
And I don't think the second volume also does that, but even weirder. Like the second volume allows Ostrander and McDonald's names to have their first names to have be spelled normally, but then Bob Lewis is all caps for some reason.
Well, I think Bob Lewis is also all caps on the first one.
Yeah, so I don't know why they've decided this weird. It's a weird font choice.
Our friend Jamie at Jamie_season7 says, "Love this run." I agree. What do you make of the political side of it? I think we sort of started to comment on that already. But anything else to add for that point?
I think it's what makes the book work, and is what I think what makes the book itself last to the modern day. Without it, I don't think you really would have had that. Had that lasting, had nearly as much of a lasting impact as you could have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our friend Mason at the GD256 says has 3 questions for us. One, how well did either Suicide Squad movie adapt the source material? If you're referring to the original run, I don't think either of them does the original run quite the way that Ostrander had initially envisioned it.
Yeah.
But for like Suicide Squad as a concept as a whole, I mean, James Gunn does it better. Obviously, he's James Gunn. He just gets the characters better. But also, we know that the David Ayer one was a victim to some Warner Brothers meddling, and
I mean, it is I have opinions on that film and how badly it's edited together, and it just
a lot
doesn't of it work.
Yeah. His second question is, who is the most memeable member of the team? From the comic, the most memeable, Boomerang, probably.
Yeah, I was going to say Captain Boomerang is the comic relief, and he's a bastard.
Squad fans like myself do typically like to make fun of whoever is the first one to die in any given run. So I guess, well, without spoiling it, it would be that character.
That character who I barely recall anything.
But I mean, hey, they're on the cover.
They are on the cover.
They're on the cover. His third question is, which character would you trust most to keep you alive? Deadshot.
Yeah, it was like either Deadshot or Flag. Like
I would say Flag because Flag would actually believe in keeping you alive. I would say Deadshot though because Deadshot would probably just be better at it.
Deadshot would be better at it.
That's the thing with Deadshot. It's like Deadshot doesn't actually care to be there, and like he doesn't like being a part of the team, but he's good at it. He's really good at it.
It's also it's also so interesting. The sort of the morality of the characters.
Yeah,
I was expecting everyone to be kind of an unrepentant asshole, which worried me a little bit going in because I don't always love stories where everybody's a complete asshole and terrible to each other. But like, no, Ostrander does a really good job characterizing everyone as human.
Oh, definitely.
And like the biggest asshole on the team
is at
is
least
made
fun
to
to
be
read.
is made to be a joke,
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
like a
Yeah.
total pathetic joke.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then our last question, we got DM to us from our friend Andrew, who's been on the podcast before. He says, if you could make your own Suicide Squad team, who would you put in it and why?
Um. So, okay, I would probably stick. I would probably at least keep Deadshot and Rick Flag
Hmm.
as the commander because he knows what he's doing. Um, it would depend. It would depend on the mission. But I would, instead of adding Harley Quinn, I would add maybe Poison Ivy. Um,
I think there is some. I think there are a few like squad issues that do have Ivy in them for some reason.
Interesting.
There's also one that I like when this like versions of the Suicide Squad throw in like ridiculously overpowered characters on the team for like no reason, without spoiling where it comes in because it is meant to be a surprise. Zod is incorporated into the squad at one point.
Really?
Yes, and
That's
it's very fun.
ridiculous.
But like the idea being is that like they throw in like this massively overpowered character, and they're like a big loose cannon. You know, they can't actually be trusted on the team. Um, so like I love the one that has Zod on it. I think that's great. I do like Harley as a part of the team mostly because I've read a lot of current Squad comics, and I do like she does feel like a very natural part of the team. Um, I say current. She hasn't actually been on the team in a while. But current is in like New 52 onwards. Um,
Yes.
I do love Deadshot and Boomerang as mainstays on the team. Bronze Tiger, I associate a lot with the team, so he'd probably be on there. As far as like other villains that I think would be cool to see on there, I haven't read it, but I know there's a run with Bane on it, and I think that might be
That would
interesting.
work. What
Yeah,
I especially love, at least how Ostrander constructs the team, is that everyone has a purpose.
yeah,
Like
oh, definitely. Yeah.
they fulfill a role.
Ooh, you know who'd be great for a squad member? I'm not sure if it's ever been done before, but Parasite from Superman.
Ooh, that could be
That
interesting.
that could be cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know um there's an animated film. I think it's the Arkham one, that has Killer Frost on the team, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
pun not intended. I hadn't even I didn't even think of that. But yeah, I don't know. There are a lot of cool characters. Like that's the great thing about the Suicide Squad is you could throw pretty much anyone on the team and have some fun with it. So
yeah.
yeah, a lot of potential. But I guess anything else to add to our non-spoiler discussion before we get into spoilers?
Um, I'd say, this is because this is an episode that probably will be possibly a lot of people not really knowing about the team. Uh, I'd honestly really recommend tracking down this volume. It's still in print. You can get it either in the original 2015 printing, which I have, or they reprinted it in like when The Suicide Squad came out, and it has
Yeah,
a
they gave it like a
movie.
new cover with what it has Peacemaker on it, right? And Harley
And
Quinn.
Harley, and it's like,
It's like, all right, you're kind of misleading some readers, but all right.
yeah, they aren't going to be in this book because
Yeah.
Harley doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, but yeah, also because we're probably gonna get slapped by some algorithms because of the title of this episode and the next one, it would be really appreciated if those of you listening could share the episode around to anyone that might be interested in listening. It would
yes.
really mean a lot.
On as many platforms as you would like as well, because
Yeah, and yeah, because God,
we
Twitter
we
is a mess.
Twitter is a mess, and it's getting messier. And we have, since we're recording this in advance, we don't know what the state of Twitter is going to be
We
when
don't
this
know if
actually
Twitter
comes
will
out.
exist by the time that this comes out.
Yes.
So who knows? But yeah, I guess let's get into it. Consider this your official spoiler warning. We're starting Suicide Squad Trial by Fire, with an issue of Secret Origins, number 14 here. And you know what
Yes.
was funny actually when I was going through my box to see if I of single issues to see if I had this in singles, I did not.
I did not.
But I have it now. Didn't realize just how many Secret Origins issues I had, and all around like the same time from like the 10 to 30 range. I have like a solid like 8 or 9 Secret Origins issues, like completely unrelated to each other. And I don't know why, but they're there.
Well, I mean, I imagine part of it is because I know, like in Volume 2, there's also a Secret Origins issue.
Yeah, that one like
Uh,
focuses in on Nightshade. This
so
one here is just a general like prelude to the Suicide Squad series.
yeah, this
But a lot of the ones I have, like I have I have a Nightwing one, a Zatanna Zatara one, the Guardians. I think that's a Millennium tie-in actually. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. I didn't realize that I had that much.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's get into this because this is probably the weakest issue of the collection.
This is
And
issue 3. But
look, issue 3 isn't bad. Fuck off.
what's especially interesting is this is something that DC's done more than once as like a preview for an upcoming new comic is
It
to
happens a lot.
dedicate.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. It still happens to this day.
which I think is great. We've read one of these for the podcast before with the New Teen Titans. This one's infinitely better than the New Teen Titans one because this
The
one
New Teen
actually
Titans one is a mess.
it's a mess. This one actually makes sense. So we open um, at the White House.
Yes. After the events of an event called Legends, which, if I'm remembering rightly, would be like the big DC event of the year before Millennium, and I think it would have been the first one post Crisis on Infinite Earths.
I was gonna say, isn't this like this is like the first post-crisis event?
Yeah, it was a big like New Gods Dark Side thing. Set up a couple new titles, this being the big one, of course, and yeah. So after the events of Legends, which is actually where Amanda Waller was first introduced as a character, where she was first created.
Yes.
She's coming in here to ask Reagan to authorize the reinstatement of a new Task Force X.
And I think this issue of all the issues is the wordiest of like
Yeah,
the entire collection.
It's got some Roger Stern level dialogue going on here.
See, a lot of it works in places. It wasn't as hard to read for me as some of those Stern issues that we read.
But
I feel
like
bad
I said
for
earlier,
anyone
like
who likes Roger Stern.
But like I said, like I said, this issue feels very like necessary. Like you sort of have to get through it to go into the first issue.
Also, it's just a really great character introduction if you've never experienced Amanda Waller. Like,
yeah, because what I guess your only introduction to the character would have been Arrow, right?
Yeah, it would have basically been Arrow, and I've seen clips of her in Justice League.
Oh, she's so good in Justice League. So good.
I know the voice who plays her in Justice League, but I can't place.
I can't remember who does it there.
But it's great. And what's fascinating is we have her basically, is determined. Like Reagan is like, oh, do you think the U.S. should really be involved in something like this? And Waller's just no nonsense. Always has been before, sir.
So
I know the government. You're shit. And it's a full one page, and they're just all these peppered in throughout, just these direct digs to Ronald Reagan. That again, I don't think if you were a young kid you would understand them. Like why are they angry at the president? Well,
yeah. Yeah, exactly. But we go into it then, the secret origin of the Suicide Squad, and basically just telling us things that like I'm not sure. I haven't read like the very earliest appearances of the squad, but like I can't imagine they go into a lot of what is revealed here. But they do retread some things because I think that when they go into the JSA stuff, that's like a retread of where they first appeared, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. So, but our first thing is to basically give us the backstory of Captain Rick Flag.
Yes.
This would be Rick Flag Senior. So not the Rick Flag that we follow through the rest of the book. Which
is some real like George Perez, Steve Trevor shit going on right there.
Yeah. Which I mean, partially it feels like, oh right, we're post-crisis, so stuff is obviously changing, but also this is what feels, I think, the slowest, these sections of the issue.
Oh,
just
definitely.
because like Flag's an interesting character, but by the end of it, it's like, oh, he's dead, and we're going to be following his son.
Mm-hmm.
So why didn't we, trim this a little bit and
because it's a Secret Origins issue, and usually actually Secret Origins issues are two stories, like two single-length stories slapped into one issue. But this one they made a double-length story. I guess one half being the Rick Flag stuff, the other half being the Amanda Waller stuff.
Which I will say, the Amanda Waller stuff is infinitely more interesting.
Oh, I love the Amanda Waller stuff.
Like she is fascinating. But yeah, also just opening with an annual length issue, especially where I'm gonna say it, this is the one issue where I really have like some art complaints. It's not
Yeah.
it's
And,
not bad.
yeah, and I told you ahead of time that like Luke McDonald as an artist like is very good, but he's drawing some very plain looking characters here and doesn't really get a chance to really play around with the art.
Yeah, it also almost feels like, especially in the early half, he may be trying to emulate like Golden Age panels in places.
Yeah, I
Like
get that.
like
Yeah.
if we're retelling stories from the Golden Age, he may want to like follow the layout structure and possibly even like redraw some panels, which again, not a bad idea, but it does make this one issue stand out as weird.
Yeah.
Um,
But we get into it. I mean, I imagine we don't need to like go super in depth on
yeah,
this.
I mean, we
Um,
get a decent chance of who Flag is as a commander of the squad. He's no nonsense. He is willing to just knock out his any members who aren't interesting. Reagan, has Reagan's heart goes a flutter at the American imperialism, as Reagan is one to do.
it's
Um,
so good. Um,
uh,
we meet Richard Flagg's wife, Sharon Race, which is a name. Uh, and let's see. Oh yeah, yeah. So we talk about like Flag's time with his conflict with the JSA here, or the JSA's disappearance and how Flag was involved in all that. Um, which okay, fine, doesn't mean much to you
I
if you're
mean,
not invested in that kind of stuff.
I do like the idea. Because this is like the 50s, it feels very McCarthy. The JSA are communists, which is that's the implication I read into this.
Mm.
Probably isn't, because there's probably some comic that explains it. But I like to think that in the DC universe, the House of Un-American Activities Committee brought a bunch of superheroes in as communists.
But then we talk about the actual creation of Task Force X, which was started by Harry S. Truman, which I love. I fucking love that. So he talks about like how the idea of the task force being that like it's divide between the military and the civilian side of Task Force X, which was the original idea of it, and all the Task Force X is back in like the 50s is it's meant to be this it is more a government organization than what John Ostrander is going for, which is what this issue is meant to do. It's that transitionary period between what the squad was when it was first conceived um and what Ostrander is turning it into here.
Yes. Um, and we see them fighting dinosaurs,
Yes,
and
which I love.
which is crazy.
But at some point during all this, Sharon and Richard have a son named Rick, um,
And
and
he instills in his son those American patriot values of serving one's country.
yeah,
Um, all through a lens of Ostrander just not being tongue in cheek, but being very, very critical of
hmm
Ray of the American government in general, and Reagan in
hmm
specific.
And
Um,
considering how Ostrander writes adult Rick Flag later on, I love the play on this. Like when you consider like how he was brought up as a kid, I
yes,
just think it's super interesting. But then his mom gets hit by a car,
yes,
and
and dies.
yeah,
Like
it's a bit sudden and probably just I don't know. I didn't love this part of the issue. They're like walking
it's
out of a grocery store, and this car's about to hit little Rick, and his mom pushes him out of the way, and then she's hit. Um,
and she's dead instantly. Um, it's it's also just kind of over the top. Like, oh, well, we need to kill off his mom so he
yeah.
can
um,
so his dad can get really really sad.
And then
Uh,
2 pages later, Richard dies. Uh, he's killed by the war wheel, which is just beautiful.
it's okay. Is this a thing? Like,
I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't read the earliest appearances of the squad or whatever. Like I don't know. I don't know how accurate all of this is or how much of this Ostrander made up. To be honest, this is the squad that I know. So I'm just taking this issue at face
well,
value.
this could be a thing in like Legends, that there's a giant war wheel that kills off.
I'm gonna read Legends. I actually found all six issues of Legends like for like $40.
It's weird that it's not like in print in a trade.
Yeah, but also I found it weird that it's not super expensive too, because it's the first appearance of Amanda Waller, and I think that's kind of a big deal. But whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't
yeah.
know. Anyway, but yeah, so Richard dies. Rick sees both his parents as heroes, and then he goes and joins the Air Force and whatever. Um,
And
yeah, and that's all it is. He's given the job of Task Force X, or no, not yet, right? No, not
not
yet.
yet, right?
But
Uh,
he does meet his love interest here. One Karen, what's her last name?
Grace.
Grace, that's her last name,
Yes.
which is really funny because Rick's mom's last name was Race.
Yeah.
I hadn't put that together until just now. I don't know. It's funny. Karen Grace, yes. They're assigned together, and they fall in love and whatever. And then they become Task Force X. That's it. They're the military side of Task Force X, and they're also
Yes.
shown fighting dinosaurs. And
Well,
I don't know why that's a common thing in in this issue, but I'm glad that it is.
I mean, it could be like DC's Silver Age thing with gorillas. You just slap a gorilla on the cover, it would sell like hotcakes.
That's true. That's true. That's a real thing.
I don't like that that's a real thing because it
I'm
just
so
seems
glad
so
it's a real thing.
random.
It's
Of
so
like,
great.
um,
But yeah, so yeah, so they get sent on off on this mission.
they've been hiding their relationship from everyone because Karen was originally married to a man who sacrificed himself for her. He dies. She falls in love with Rick, and they keep it hidden. But they're sent um, to the Himalayas to find out the truth about the abominable snowman the hard way.
I, and Rick is attacked. Then they find their way after this it was, I guess, like whatever they're standing on this mountain collapses. They go to the Golden Temple.
There's a nice little note from the editor, as seen in Action Comics 552.
Which I want to get that story now.
I I I mean 552. I don't know how contemporary that would be to this. Probably a little. That has to be pre-crisis, right?
No.
Like
Mm-mm.
I don't know. I don't know.
It shouldn't be. I don't think so.
I mean, considering how close this is to post-crisis. Um, I mean, if it's immediately post-crisis, then that's part of John Byrne's run, which would be
Well, this is by Marv Wolfman. I just looked it up, and it
uh,
was 84, so not long
so
before, not long
not
before
long before
Crisis.
crisis.
So
Uh, so yeah, so they go into this temple. It gets leaked that Rick and Karen are in love. Um, the team has a falling out
they start to
because
leave. They're attacked by the Yeti again, I
again,
guess, and we get this wonderful moment where Rick just punches Karen in the face so that she doesn't get involved here. That's right. She doesn't stop someone from sacrificing themselves. So he knocks her out. They start to escape. They all get out of there. Well, no, actually, just Rick and Karen get out of there, and the rest of
and
their team dies, I guess.
yeah, and something broke. The other two team members sacrificed themselves. And something broke in Rick Flag that day. Um, and
And
then
then he winds up with a group called the Forgotten Heroes, um, which I don't know anything about, but I see Animal Man here, and I love that. I love that Animal Man is here.
yeah, I thought Animal Man was created by Grant Morrison.
I believe, yes, I believe. I know they have a really famous run on Animal Man. I don't know if they created the character. They
Yeah,
probably did. I don't know.
I don't know. It feels weird. Um, you know, but that's where Rick Flag essentially stayed. Um, as his wife uh is basically in a coma.
Yeah, and
Like,
she's like slowly recovering,
yeah,
and that's where that story ends. Like Rick just leaves everything behind then, and then Waller hands another file to Reagan, and uh, and then we get like the second story in Secret Origins of this issue, which is the Amanda Waller side of things, which is the infinitely better story, and it's only about like 10 pages long.
Yeah,
So
it's much more interesting. And it's basically a response to the question of, well, why, Miss Waller, would you want to be, in charge of this team? And it's a really nice backstory. We find out, Amanda Waller fell in love with a man called Joseph when she was very young. They got married, had kids, and they were a perfect, happy little family in the Cabrini Green neighborhood of Chicago, which that is a very deliberate choice, because that is a largely non-white area of Chicago, and one that has historically been fucked over by the government.
Well, that makes sense here then.
It's the setting of the film Candyman for a reason.
That's true. Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
That's
why.
I
love that film. That is right. Okay. But yeah, so we learn that she's married. She has 2 children. Had 2 children, as we learned very quickly that one of them was shot by another kid. That he died, and that was the first one that Amanda Waller buried.
That was the first funeral, which the dialogue and here just kind of hits you.
And then we get this really fucked up scene where her daughter is accosted by this man who won't leave her alone. It is then implied that he rapes and murders her, and then is seeking revenge. Amanda's husband goes out to try to find this guy. He's then killed, while successfully killing the one that killed her daughter anyway. So that's nice.
So it leaves a very hardened Amanda Waller on her own. But because Amanda Waller is kind of a badass,
she's such a badass. She pushes through it. She gets this drives her. She gets this great education. She goes on to go ahead.
She gets herself through college and her remaining children through college. She gets involved in local politics to get a man called Marvin Collins into Congress. And this begins just a great political career, and she's moved up the political ladder and grabbed any power that she can. There's a point here where she asks Reagan to remember social programs in another snide remark, and she's like, right, I'm going to, and basically it just ends with her being, I'm going to be putting together this team. Because this is something
they did mention that in Legends they put together a team just in a hurry recently, consisting of Rick Flag, Deadshot, Bronze Tiger, Enchantress, Captain Boomerang, and someone called Blockbuster who died during the fight. And so we go on from there. Like, they made this team, and she wants to authorize this team as an official government organization, and she gets it. Reagan approves it, and it's great. It's this really great scene, and it shows how far, like, I love seeing how far Amanda Waller has come, and Ostrander really makes this character.
Yes, and she basically the issue ends with her leaving the president. Reagan being Reagan, I like action. Besides, Mrs. Waller has been a bit too effective for Congressman Collins. Maybe this way I'll get some of my problem programs passed. A little extra dividend never hurts.
Oh my god.
Oof.
But Amanda leaves, tells Rick the good news that Task Force X is officially in business, and they go off. And then we lead into issue 1, which has such a great cover, and we both agreed at this point that, like, it should be the cover of the collection.
Yeah, like, I don't know why they went with the issue 2 cover.
I forget which run it is. It might be the Tom Taylor one. One of them does an homage to this cover, and it has the line like, "These people put their lives on the line for our country," and one of them won't be coming back. And I forget who it is, but one of them has their, like, head turned to the reader, and it's like, "Oh, it's me, isn't it?"
It's you.
I forget what whose run it's under, but the homage is cover, and I remember it being really funny. It's pretty recent. But yeah, anyway, so we go into issue 1, and it's called Trial by Blood. And we open on this really great action sequence that I think immediately solves any problems that you had with Secret Origins.
Definitely. The art is just immediately better and more interesting to look at.
Luke McDonald was clearly just more invested in this issue than he is in Origins.
It probably helps that this issue is half the length, and
yeah, and also this first bit is like so art focused. Like these first like what 8 or 9 pages have barely any dialogue, and it's just this attack at an airport. And I love the second page, especially here after they say the title on the first page, how they do these writer and penciler and inker credits like panel by panel.
Yeah, and it feel this there are a lot of interesting credits throughout this volume that feel like movie credits that are integrated really well, and this is one of them. This feels like, ooh, we're opening an espionage thriller, but we're at an airport, and
it's attacked. That's all this scene is. These guys come in, they attack. We don't know any of their names yet, except for one of them. We learn Jin.
Jin, yes.
which I love this bit. He comes out of like this electronic device, and he looks all digital and yellow. And this cop goes like, "What the devil is that?" And he's like, "Not devil, Jin." And it's just a funny little moment. But yeah, it's just a great opening action sequence that really like throws you into the book, and honestly might have been a stronger issue to like open the collection on. But then like, what do you do with Secret Origins?
Yeah, I mean,
I remember I read Suicide Squad #1 isolated from Secret Origins.
I feel like it's definitely meant to work that way, just because this is a #1 issue. Like
people are going to pick up with this one. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you have first issue on the cover in fairly big letters. But yeah, this attack is great. They're attacking this country's president. Meanwhile, like the American president and Air Force One is present and essentially gets shot down and escapes. And all of these people just disappear. And we get some really nice panels of just the destruction with a bunch of dead bodies and survivors trying to find their loved ones. And we find out that these groups of people were called the Jihad.
Yes,
which is certainly a name for a group of international terrorists.
Yeah. But after the attack is all done and over with, we go over to Belle Reve Federal Prison, Louisiana, which is where we're going to spend a lot of this book.
Yes.
It's a great setting. I love the way the exterior is drawn here. It feels almost it's very confined, but it feels alive at the same time with all the like just some of the abnormal edges on it.
It's architecturally a very weird looking prison. Like it's clear that the cells are all far enough above the ground that if someone tried to like escape through,
they can't like jump out of their window. They'd have to like get down to the ground level, and
you couldn't do the classic tunneling like Shawshank Redemption out, because you would just tunnel and fall several stories to your death.
But meanwhile, one Johnny Economos is being interviewed by Vicky Vale. Now you know Vicky Vale, of course. You don't know Johnny Economos. I love you'll find out in the next episode, but James Gunn actually adapts John Economos as a character for his film, and he's like one of the main characters of the Peacemaker series. Yeah, he's great. I just love that he's getting more recognition nowadays. But yeah, it's just a cool little scene. We talk about some of the prisoners being held at Belle Reve. There are a lot of editor's notes throughout these issues. Because I read from all the single issues, I wasn't sure if the collected editions kept all the editor's notes in here.
They're kept.
They're all in here, and I love that.
They're all kept.
They get to a point in some of the later issues where they're like, where they're like, "Yeah, you got to buy this, yes," and like Bob Greenberger, who is the editor and like who's like recommending all these issues that you have to read for context. He gets like fun about it, and even I think like early on in the second volume, he starts like being like, "Yes, we want all your money. Buy all these issues.
Buy all these issues."
It's really fun.
It's really funny because this, like, ideally, this is a book that's not going to be marketed to your standard crowd. Like,
yeah. So odds are, like, people that are reading this, like, will be able to buy other issues.
And will have probably already bought all those other issues.
Yeah, exactly. At least, and especially if you're a fan of Ostrander, because they reference Firestorm a lot, and Ostrander was on Firestorm.
Yes.
So
But yeah, one of the prisoners is the Parasite, who is
Yes. Who does
green,
use green and yellow? Yes. So
which
not,
is certainly a choice.
yeah, definitely
Uh,
not the Parasite you know, but
and
anyway.
I actually
Um,
thought Parasite might be on the team. Uh,
See, that would be cool. I obviously I mentioned it earlier, but that would be really cool. Yeah, I'm not sure if any squad team has actually done it. Probably at some point, but I'm not sure. Anyway, but yeah. So after this interview is over, Economos meets with who's this lady's name? What do they say?
um, Flo Crowley.
That's right, Flo.
Uh,
Um, And I like this one little bit where she's like, by the way, your ex-wife called. Mary Alice. And it's just like, it's fun. I like that. But yeah, so we go then to meet with Amanda Waller. Flo calls Amanda, who is briefing the Suicide Squad on their very first mission.
and what's interesting is that they sort of have like a home base team. Like you have Dr. Legrieve, who gets a very good issue, and
Yeah, oh my
at the
God,
end,
yeah. Great
um,
idea for a character to have a psychiatrist on the team, you know?
it's
The,
it's fascinating because Ostrander is writing something where there's this sense that Waller actually cares about the well-being of the team
mhm.
because she knows without their well-being, like not through any like actual altruistic like
Yeah,
they're
she doesn't actually care about how they're feeling. Just like if they were doing unwell, they would be ineffective.
yeah, then what would be the point of them being on the team? Which I think that's just a great insight to her character and a great insight to how she's not she's not like cruel.
Hmm.
She's hard.
Um,
She's a
yeah,
hard woman.
yeah.
Um, and is
We get our big team shot here. We got Rick Flag, Deadshot, Bronze Tiger, Plastique, Mindboggler, June Moon, and Captain Boomerang. It's interesting. The cover says that there are 8 members, and you don't actually properly meet the first member in this issue, or the eighth
the
member in
eighth
this
member.
issue.
Yes.
Um,
Um,
but did you know all these characters ahead of time, or at least a fair
so,
few of them?
so I was familiar with Boomerang, Deadshot, and Flag specifically.
Hmm.
I didn't remember Bronze Tiger, honestly,
Okay.
despite it. But Plastique and Mindboggler are the two that I'm the least familiar with.
They actually
Uh,
do Plastique on the Harley Quinn animated show.
ah,
Yeah.
uh,
Involved with the Suicide Squad too, which is fun.
then
And then June Moon, you didn't know Enchantress?
I did know Enchantress at least a little
You
bit because
did.
she was
Okay.
in Flashpoint. Uh,
That is right. I forgot about that.
and here she's infinitely more interesting as a character,
Yes.
and like
Yeah.
she might be like my favorite team member.
Oh my God, she's fascinating. Like I love her. I remember I was so excited once again when they announced the cast of the 2016 film, and I was like, oh my God, they're doing Enchantress. No one ever does Enchantress, and
They
and
did
then
that with her.
yeah. But anyway, so we're getting them briefed on their mission. Basically, we get this whole page of introducing all of them. We meet all their characters. One of my favorite things about this team, though, in particular, is we have Rick Flag, who is like the government, a man between the villains and the government. But you have also Ben Turner here, Bronze Tiger, who is not necessarily a villain.
He isn't. He isn't, and I really like that. It's helpful
Hmm.
that
He
again.
was brainwashed by the League of Assassins, and he's trying to find out who he is. Um, and so he's not a villain like properly. And
Yeah.
yeah, and
Well, I'd
also
argue
might
even
be
the
worth
Enchantress
mentioning.
isn't a villain. You
Yeah,
have
it also
you,
might be worth mentioning, especially given a later issue in this collection, that he's the only black member on the team. Um,
yes.
and having him be one of the only actual non-villains there. I think that's important. But yeah,
Also,
like I said, especially
oddly
given a later
diverse
issue.
for this book to have two major characters who are non-white.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and Amanda Waller, who's one of my favorite comic book characters ever, like because of Suicide Squad. Um, yeah, she's great. But anyway, we meet all our characters here. I just, I, I haven't really taken notice before to how Boomerang is drawn here.
he's winking.
He's winking, and he looks just as creepy as he is. Uh,
Yes.
yeah.
Um,
We
and
learn of now. Did you when you know of like the bombs that are attached to the squad members? Did you know the neck bombs? Or did you know the wrist bombs?
I just knew them as bombs.
Oh,
I
okay.
um
Typically nowadays it's neck bombs all the time, but when it was first conceived, it was the wrist bombs that kept them in line.
Yeah, but this, I mean, it works especially for like the technology of 1987.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Because I know the film does, does the neck bombs and they're physically injected in, and I'm like, you can't do that in 1987.
Yeah, and also I prefer the neck bombs personally because of the literal threat of death being your head being blown off.
Yes.
Yeah, I just love that. But yeah, so we learn about the wrist bombs here. We get a little bit of characterization for Plastique in that moment, but we move on and just Mind Boggler's just there. I love it.
She's there.
She does nothing.
Yeah.
I think as we continue to read Squad, you'll always be able to tell like who is the cannon fodder of the team.
Who is the cannon fodder?
Who they're gonna kill off just to show that Amanda Waller isn't just messing around with them.
Because some characters don't make it alive.
But Amanda Waller goes to brief them, tells them what happened at the airport, and introduces them to the Jihad. We meet each member. We have Rustum, Jin, Manticore, Jaculi, Chimera, and Raven, who are all some names.
What's interesting is that they're all kind of, in a way, parallels to the Squad themselves. Like, which, again, Ostrander just does such a good job of just, in general, doing this and having, like, the Squad, each member, be there for a reason. Also, it's a very nice motivation to have, time taken off your prison sentence.
Yeah. We also learned that the Jihad is being backed by their country's president, Marlowe. This fictional country is called Kurak, which I don't know, I just like that.
I mean, it's combining multiple Middle Eastern countries, and I think it's probably a good decision, especially since there's a tendency when portraying other cultures, especially cultures of the Middle East, to make them this very bad stereotype. And you can and I'd argue Ostrander kind of avoids it with using Kurak, which is a DC exclusive country type thing, which has been used in other things, but is very very smartly done.
Yeah. But then the squad begins to roll out. We send them over to their aircrafts. We learn that Waller is keeping a secret from Rick Flag about this mission, about someone else that will be joining them on their team. We learn very shortly after that extra person being added to the team is Karen Grace, joining Rick Flag once again, which I never knew how to feel about this. Like, I don't know. There's something that happens in Volume 2 that makes sense as to why they threw her in here, but I don't know, I just found her inclusion just very interesting.
It feels like she's just there to give Rick Flag some angst and to have some conflict about his romantic relationships, which I get. Yeah. But I don't think it works perhaps as well as it could have.
Yeah, definitely.
And she's a fine character. But she's just kind of really connected to Flag, partially because of the Secret Origins issue and, the way that, we are introduced to her in general. So there's always that priming that she's in line with what Rick Flag is doing. Also, Captain Boomerang is being a bastard.
Yes, and so we get a taste of Mind Boggler's powers for his country, and it's just this illusion of Flash, Batman, and Superman all laughing at him, calling him a loser and a clown. And I just love that that Harkness doesn't actually have these deep-seated fears. It's just being made fun of.
It's being made fun of. He responds in turn by throwing a boomerang, which Bronze Tiger just catches.
And then Digger is about to do a racism.
Digger does a racism. It just gets cut off before it gets to the worst part of the racism.
That's true. That is true.
And more on that in 3 issues time, because
definitely. Because we do some very interesting things with that. But that's where we end off the issue. They all head out, and we go into issue 2 here, which is the cover of the collection. And it's a good cover. I like it.
It looks better in print here than it does on the cover. Like,
I agree. Yeah, with the re-inks and the recolors. Yeah.
yeah, like it's so weird because you have like this was
Because they don't
published.
they don't re-ink or recolor the other collections in this
No,
run.
and
It's
like,
just
well, and
this
this
one.
this would have been released around around the same time as they started releasing the New Teen Titans, and they don't re-ink Perez's inks.
I
Like,
think this was done because I think they started releasing these collections around when the first film was being released, so they really wanted to sell this one.
I mean, okay, but there's a thing that books do. I hate it, but they add these stickers, like now a major motion picture, even to like the non-movie tie-in cover.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
they could have just done that. I would still hated it because it's a sticker on my book, and sometimes those aren't removable.
Oh my God, there's the worst one on they do it on the boys collected editions that Amazon sells and provides. There's like a now an Amazon Prime series, and it's like they're just like they're not even stickers, they're just part of the
It's just
cover.
printed on the cover. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. I hate it. I
Sucks.
don't like it.
But anyway, this is the actual issue where the collection gets its name too, Trial by Fire. And we've arrived in Kurok, and they are immediately attacked by Chimera, who is in fact a member on the inside working for Waller. Her name is Nightshade, and that would be the eighth member that is featured on the
Yes.
first cover. So what did you make of this at first when you read it?
Well, so I thought like, okay, I know Nightshade can't die because Volume 2 is called the Nightshade Odyssey.
That's
Um,
fair. I
she's a character who I didn't really connect with, and I hope the
Really?
second volume
think she
kind of
comes on very
rectifies.
strong in this first collection.
She's she's great, but she's not unique. Um,
I get that.
yeah, I really like her opening scenes, but other after that, she kind of fades into the background of the team just a little bit, which is kind of, I mean, part of that's just because this is a team with currently 8 characters. Soon
Yeah,
to be.
we need to start cleaning that up a little bit. So we need to get rid of a few. So let's start doing that this issue. So we move on here. Nightshade is pissed at Rick for what reason? Well, because she wasn't briefed entirely on the mission or whatever.
Because she wasn't briefed, and well, because she was accessory to the massacre in issue 1. Because
That's
she
right.
was
Yeah.
there, and
Yep.
she didn't want to basically be a murderer, which
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, she didn't actually kill anyone. She just got everyone out of there.
no, and well, yeah, and but she was there and pretending to be part of the attack, which
Mhm.
sucks.
There was I want to bring this up now actually because there was a complaint that you had watching the 2016 film that you were like, the members of the team aren't put together for a specific purpose. They don't serve a purpose here like as they are individuals. And I like Nightshade's inclusion here. Just bringing this up now as an opportune moment to do that. Like she is the one that gets everybody out of there. Like Deadshot is
Yeah,
the perfect marksman. Things like that.
yeah,
They all have like a thing that they can offer to the team that no one else can.
and I think I think that's the best way to construct a Suicide Squad team. Like,
Hmm.
um, which again, I think at least the 2016 film does poorly. Um, and well, that's also because the 2016 film, as a film, like this team was constructed specifically for this mission, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the 2016 film, the vague threat of a potential evil Superman is why they're constructed instead of a clear and present danger, which is
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
the issues of the film we'll talk about at the end of this episode.
indeed.
Um,
But yeah, so we go over our plan, like who takes on like which member of the Jihad. What is it? Deadshot is going after Manticore, Enchantress is going after the Jinn, Boomerang's after Jackie, Bronze Tiger is after Raven, and who's after? Oh yeah, Nightshade is oh no, sorry, Rick Flag is taking on Rustum, and
yes, and they're all it's all very well constructed. Like the two sort of big guys who can fight of Jihad are being taken out by people who fight from afar.
mhm,
Deadshot, being able to be a marksman, and Boomerang having his boomerangs.
yeah,
The
and
Jin is
Nightshade is
taken
here to
out
like get
by
everybody into those areas.
yeah. Jin is being taken out by the Enchantress, who does magic, and that's going to wreck the computer that he apparently exists in. They don't really explain
I
very
love
well.
Jin. I think Jin is just like this perfect little just anomaly in this team.
It is very 1980s, though. You have to admit,
Oh yeah, yeah.
like a person living as a computer.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so Nightshade is tasked with getting everybody into their respective persons they need to fight. So Deadshot goes after Manicore here. Plastique is sent in to do what? I don't know what her actual mission is here. What was she sent to do? She's keeping an eye out for Flag.
Yeah, and well, she's also supposed to destroy a lab where they're creating new members of the Jihad. Like they're, I guess, I don't know if they're supposed to be like robots or people who they're like making into metahumans. But yeah, she's
anyway.
also.
But yeah, so she transports everybody else to where they need to go. Nightshade talks with Flag for a little bit before Comrade Mushtak is who's working with the president of Kurak here. He comes in and finds Plastique. But we learn at the same time. What's up? Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's almost hinted at that she's going off on her own, and you're just questioning, okay, what's she doing? Is she going to betray them? And
but then we learn
going to betray them.
Yeah, so we learn that she's going to betray them, but also we learn that Mushtak here is not actually Mushtak, and he's in fact a man named Nemesis, who is a secret ninth member of the Suicide Squad that's also here. So he calls her out for a traitor. She fights him off, and he plans to tell everyone else on the squad about her. Meanwhile, the whole place is blowing up. Everyone's trying to escape. Whose helicopter is this?
I think it's the U.S.
Okay, so that's right. So they're attacking the Jihad's base. Everyone starts to evacuate. Mindboggler takes on a bunch of the guards there. Let's see. I like this little like standoff here between Bronze Tiger and who is this one? It's hard to keep track of all the Jihad names.
I don't know. The Jihads, the problem is that a lot of them are drawn kind of similar.
Yeah.
And it's a great standoff. Deadshot is, very
fighting off Manicore.
And
Flag
drops an elevator on him.
Yeah. Flag is still waiting for Rustam. Meanwhile, Nightshade goes to visit the President Marlowe of Kurak, and at the same time, Plastique comes in and stops Nightshade. Nemesis stops Plastique. Everyone's betraying each other. It's great.
Everyone's betraying each other. Which the president, I think, thinks that Plastique is the assassin. At least the way that it happens, and so she gets shot. And is she killed? I can't tell if she's
no, because we deal with her later.
Yeah. So she gets shot and taken out.
Flag is fighting Rustam, and then you know what? Boomerang takes on, I forget what this one's name is, but I wanted to mention here actually. I love the way that Boomerang is written, his little Australian thing, like
everything I'll say is with a thick Aussie accent, mate.
And how like Ostrander like phonetically writes out his accent. I think it's great. It's just really fun to read.
I doubt Australian people actually talk like that, but
God no. But it's fun to imagine for Boomerang because Boomerang's an ass.
We need to get someone from Australia on as a guest for one of the Suicide
Squad episodes
in the future, just to make them read all of Captain Boomerang's dialogue.
But yeah, everyone sort of like finishes their fights around the same time. Bronze Tiger stops fighting his guy. Deadshot beats his guy. And then June Moon unleashes the Enchantress. Based on what you knew about Enchantress from Flashpoint,
I didn't expect it to be like, I didn't expect it to be more like she's literally possessed.
Yeah, and she is like at war with herself pretty much.
I like that dynamic because you really feel for June as a character throughout all of this.
Oh, totally. Yeah, definitely. But she's then attacked by the Jinn. Their little fight begins as Enchantress beats the Jinn pretty easily. But
by blowing up the bottle with magic.
And then she transforms back. It takes a lot out of June. Meanwhile, Mindboggler is surrounded by a lot of these guards here in the base. This other guy that from the Jihad comes up behind Mindboggler as Boomerang is watching from above and chooses not to do anything about her being shot in the back. So Mindboggler is the first casualty of the Suicide Squad, and I feel nothing. But also, it just goes to show once again how horrible Boomerang is as a person.
It does. It's a great tone setter, though, for what the rest of this series is going to be.
Yeah, and he doesn't even like let her die just because he's an ass. Like he lets her he lets her die just because she messed with his mind once for about 5 seconds.
And he almost feels regret. It's like, what a senseless waste of human life. Which he thinks to himself. Mind you, he's just let this woman die. But like everyone gets back to the jet, and
he tells them about Mindboggler's death. Nemesis joins the team and tells them about Plastique's betrayal, and then we start to leave. The Jihad is after them once more. They fly out of there. They escape, and that's about that. That's issue 2.
That's that.
And we open the collection on this nice little or the actual Suicide Squad series, not the collection, but on this nice little 2-part story that I think really works for setting the tone for the series.
It does, and it tells a nice complete story with these characters.
Yeah.
What's really nice is that okay, so this is, as a collection, this is kind of 5 different stories. The Secret Origins issue, this first 2-parter, issue 3 and 4 are basically single issues, standalones, which are fine. Then 5 through 7 is one nice 3-issue mini arc that I have so many thoughts about. And then issue 8 is this nice final wrap up with I will say, I knew it was coming, and I knew issue 9 was a tie into Millennium, but I kind of groaned seeing the next time Millennium. Just tagging it like, all right, we're going to deal with a tie-in.
We're doing Millennium again, and it's for an event that we've already read tie-ins for on a completely unrelated episode.
Millennium and Bloodlines are like the 2 events that we have read bits of in random orders, and I think that's kind of hilarious.
It's great, yeah.
Because one of those events has potential, and the other, the DC tries to forget about. #DC release the Bloodlines omnibus,
which we will get someday. I swear, it's gonna happen. I will buy all the issues. I will bind them myself, and I will make my own omnibus.
You'll make your own omni.
But anyway, we go into issue 3 here. The female Furies here. Did you put together an Apocalypse connection right away or no?
I did, based on the cover. Knowing that, recognizing the female Furies, as well knowing that each has the squad guarding G. Gordon Godfrey, because he was a character in Perez's Wonder Woman. And I Googled him out of curiosity when we were doing those books, and he's apparently one of the new gods.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, we're doing weird new gods shit for 1 issue.
Yeah.
In just the middle. Which is weird, and I'm guessing this is what the immediate follow-up to the end of Legends.
Yeah,
basically.
They have Godfrey here. We open up the issue, and Darkseid is debating what to do about him. Breaking him out of there so he can punish him is basically what he decides on. But also, I love the way Luke McDonald draws Darkseid.
Yeah,
my favorite moment here is on the 3rd page of the issue when Bernadette says there are easier ways to punish Godfrey, to great Darkseid. While you could do so from Apocalypse if that was your wish, it is needless to send we Furies. To which Darkseid says, "Needless, Bernadette," and he pauses for 2 silent panels, and then just this big close up of his face. It's what I want. And
also, that close up is a great example of using shadows and light to really make the horror of the character come out. Yeah.
And just to have Michael Ironside's dark, just calm voice in my head for lines like that, oh, it's so perfect.
Because Darkseid in the best portrayals is a calm villain. He is a god.
Yeah. He knows how powerful he is, and that all these people answer to him. So he decides to send his Furies over to rescue Godfrey, if only to punish him once he gets back to Apocalypse. But we pick up pretty much exactly where we left off after that. We see Rick Flag pondering the events of their journey over to Kurok.
I will say the best parts of the issue are these little character moments. And this is just some of my favorite parts of the collection in general, because Ostrander getting into the head of these honestly all completely fucked up characters in some way is great. And like, it doesn't feel wordy. Also, okay, the fact that there's an editor's note on Flag's first page of because it's recapping the first two issues.
Yeah, and he's like, "Hey, go see Squads number 1 and 2."
Which I'm like, okay, why would you start with an issue 3?
It happened. It happened, especially because it was a brand new series and people like weren't sure whether or not to pick it up. Like, it happens. I swear it happens. Just yeah. So remember, Suicide Squad wasn't the massive IP that it is nowadays.
Yeah, but it's pretty big able to like find the back issues fairly easy of like the first two issues of a series that has just come out.
And also if you had read Legends and you're like, okay, well, what's happening with the Apocalypse characters, and you wanted to pick up issue 3, then you could be told here what's happening. It would happen in Squads 1 and 2. So
I mean, that's fair. Though it's interesting that like on the cover there isn't an explicit this is a follow up to Legends.
Because the idea, well, that's the thing with big DC events is that they assume that everybody read them pretty much.
So everyone's read Legends.
Yeah, everyone's read Legends, everyone's read Crisis, everyone's read Millennium. It's just assumed.
Did everyone read Bloodlines?
I hope so. They better have. But anyway, so Rick Flag hears that Plastique is pretty much being tortured. They're going to they're going to try to wipe her memory of her adventure out to Kurok and any memory that she might have of the Squad. We also actually see Nightshade in her full costume here, and it's a great costume.
Yeah, it's almost Silver Age-esque in my mind, with like the blue and the orange.
Yeah. Anyway, so Rick Flag takes issue with them pretty much torturing Plastique, and also the fact that Karen is at the head of this, that she's the one working on Plastique is kind of an issue.
And this Karen Rick discourse will be something that happens throughout the volume. Like this tension is building. But yeah, Nightshade is also pissed that she was informed. That she should have been informed that Jihad were going to kill people, and that Nemesis made her an accessory to murder. And Nemesis puts the blame on Waller. Waller's just like, "Oh, shut up! Like, you have a job to do."
And then I love this in the middle of this all, because Nemesis almost feels like a last-minute addition to the Squad. We give Nemesis's backstory here over the next few pages.
Yes.
How did you feel about Nemesis as a character, just coming straight into this issue?
I felt him as kind of bland. Like he's probably outside of Mindboggler at least has the one scene where she fucks with Boomerang for a decent bit before she dies. He's probably like maybe the weakest member of the team, just because he's not as interesting, honestly.
Yeah, I get that.
I mean, it's part of it's interesting because despite this being, not being as crazy as other teams in terms of the people on it, they are very like bold people personality wise. Like so when you have someone a bit more subtle like Nemesis, he kind of falls into the background just a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair. I get that.
Yeah.
But we continue on then. Boomerang is a dick, as always. What else is new? Rick then goes to take his complaints about Plastique directly to Waller. Waller, of course, defending her actions here in wiping Plastique's memory.
Boomerang wants his own apartment, which, despite everything, he eventually gets. Like,
yeah.
Like, you don't need to, Amanda. You do not need to give this man an apartment. Let him suffer in a cell. It would be very funny for the reader if he keeps suffering in a cell.
But Rick Flag points out here that Amanda says the woman is scum colonel. She betrayed the team and the mission. She's lucky she ain't being shot. To which Rick says it's immoral and illegal, and she's like, well, so is your mission to Kurok. I didn't see you moan about that. And so as they're complaining about this, Economos lets us know of that Belarev is being attacked. The Furies coming through. They all break into Belarev, and they're here to get Godfrey. And we go into it. Also, has Flo changed race between issues?
Yes.
Yes, she has.
Is there a different colorist on this issue?
Well, no, because I know she's black for the rest of the series. Then
was there a different colorist on the first issue? Then
maybe? I don't know. Because that's why I was confused who the character was at first, and you're like Flo, and I was like, oh, okay, Flo, cool, all right.
Yeah, that's.
I think she's usually weird. Black, and here she is, and I'm pretty sure she stays that way from this point on.
And the colorist is the same. It's still Carl Gafford. So
that is so weird.
Are you reading this? Are you reading this from the trade right now, or are you reading it?
I'm reading from the trade.
So it could be just a coloring error in terms of the trade.
No, I mean maybe. I don't know. I'll double check. I'll check the issues again when we're done. But yeah, weird. Anyway, so Waller quickly tries to gather up all of the available squad members here. She gets Bronze Tiger to come on down. She contacts Floyd, but Floyd is like, nope, I'm not doing this.
Not doing it.
You know. He goes on like proper missions. This is an actual mission, so he flicks a bullet at the screen and knocks it out. And so he actually just by that logic alone, he gets exempt from the mission.
It's like, well, we can't force him because that would involve going down to his cell and letting him out physically. Yeah.
But then Boomerang sneaks off at the same time as the Furies begin to get closer to us. Bronze Tiger fights off one of them. Stampa, yes, that's right.
Yes.
Some
great honestly, the action, like the hand-to-hand action throughout this entire series is actually really good.
Oh yeah, McDonald absolutely nails it. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, and it never goes on too long either, because action you have to time very nicely, but everything seems dynamic.
Honestly, after the Secret Origins issue, like Ostrander nails the dialogue to action ratio in a comic. Yes. I think, you know.
Yeah, and not even just like action scenes, just like the action of characters physically doing something. Because that's important. Also, we get a cameo from the Penguin.
Yes, which I'm not sure if it's on purpose, because I don't know if they were planning on using him in 2 issues time, but it's there.
I wasn't expecting him to show up at all. Like, this is kind of our first Penguin stuff, really. Like, where he's in a major role. Like,
well, I mean, he had a pretty big part in Death of the Family and 0 Year.
That's true. But this is the first real time where I don't know. He feels like he actually gets some focus.
Yeah, we really do focus in on him as a character in a few issues. But
also, I love the idea of him just being part of the Suicide Squad.
Right. Of all the Batman villains, you choose the Penguin.
Yes. So they bring in a tank.
They do.
And it doesn't work because, you know, aliens. They bring in high-tech rifles, I guess. With laser rifles. And like, this is really a simple story of the female Furies going in and trying to just get Godfrey. And like they do, so I don't recognize the characters necessarily as like individual characters, because I'm not all caught up on, you know, the New Gods characters in general.
Yeah.
Because we haven't actually done a lot of stuff with the New Gods.
We have not.
But yeah, one of them grabs Godfrey. Nemesis confronts her with a gun. Godfrey is then just chucked at him, which is just a hilarious image. And Nemesis kind of gets his ass handed to him.
Yep.
And Godfrey is...
This one escapes with Godfrey. They all start to leave. And they all fire on this portal, I guess. They're not actually clear if like any of them actually die. I doubt it, but I mean,
I doubt it.
yeah.
And so the Suicide Squad lost.
Yes, and then as they wrap up their mission for the day, Boomerang comes back in and he's like, "Oh, there you are. Ran out to help and got lost. Place is a bloody maze, isn't it? The good guys win." And then they all tell him to shut up. And it's a great end to the
It's a
issue.
great ending. You can kind of see why this is a weaker issue.
I don't know. I like it.
It's fine, but it has its moments. But I don't know. It feels a bit more entrenched in Legends than I'd perhaps like. At least in terms of bringing everything up. Though I am glad that we at least get the editor's notes of go and read this to understand it. On this last page, there's an Action Comics. This happened in Action Comics number 586.
Yeah, like Superman reported to the president or something.
Which it makes me want to read John Byrne's Superman run just out of curiosity to see how.
I just want to read Superman talking to Ronald Reagan.
So. I need to see how someone else portrays that.
Oh yeah, sorry. Other than Frank Miller.
Yeah. But yeah, and now we enter
issue 4,
which
is which I remember having, like, for me at least. I remember, like, when I was first getting the single issues, I was like, oh man, this issue looks boring, and it is most definitely not. When you actually get into it all, it's probably actually the best in the collection.
I'll preface this going in. We are going to be in this issue discussing topics of racial justice, police brutality, classism, among other things, because this is a very heavy issue, and it's really good. It's also like maybe one of my favorite single issues that we've read for the podcast, like just in isolation.
It's great.
Yeah.
But it's called William Hell's Overture, and we open on this scene. Some people are robbing the store, liquor store,
in a bad part of town.
Yep. It's like these kids, they're just getting into this escape car. This shop owner is chasing after them. He's shot. And these guys start driving away when they are stopped by one William Hell, who is dressed in this, like, medieval outfit in this, like, red, white, and blue with a crossbow, and he stops them all. He fights all these guys off, and then as he starts to wrap everything up, he ties these guys up pretty much to leave them for the police, and he tells a few select members of this group to go. He lets them go, and leaves 2 of them behind for the cops to actually pick up. And these 2 kids say to the cops, they're like, "Hey, there were more of us, there were 2 more. They got away." And they're like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. Shut up." And they take these 2 kids away. Interestingly, something that you may not notice on your first time reading it, because they don't make it abundantly clear in these first 5 pages, is that William Hell let the white members of this crew go. And,
it is also it is telling if you're paying attention. Because he does say when he accosts one of the white members, "Do you know where the Aryan Empire has its headquarters, punk? Answer me, damn you. We haven't much time." Yeah, sure, 47th and Cicero. "Take the other white kid and get over there and sign up. That or the cops." So it's there. William Hell is a neo-Nazi.
Indeed.
That is what he is. He may not call himself a neo-Nazi, but that's what he is. And we see him being interviewed by the news. And it's a very... Ostrander understands fascist rhetoric.
Yeah. He does it a lot throughout this issue, mocking it, that is, of course. But in a scarily accurate way.
Well, he clearly understands. Like Hell's dialogue in this interview. "Hopefully I can be a symbol to them so that by uniting together, we can overcome those who would destroy our hope, our peace, our way of life." That's just fascist rhetoric 101. And it's oddly similar to, morals of superheroes. So if you're not paying attention, Ostrander isn't trying to get you to like this character, but he's getting you to try to at least click what the rhetoric is and what awful things he is. Something that I know recently Alan Moore got into some... Twitter got mad at Alan Moore for essentially saying the same thing. when they really shouldn't have. Because like fascism likes to use unity and creating this other of someone who's going to destroy our way of life. And that's something that this issue will do, because it's then telling that we find out, oh, he's a rich man with a chauffeur.
Yes,
Who
this chauffeur comes to pick him up, and he goes back to his home. And we learn afterwards, in this kind of comical moment, if you don't know it's coming, that like the chauffeur, after he drops off Hell at his mansion,
whose real name is Mr. Heller.
which is just like, all right, whatever. But the chauffeur gets the real chauffeur out of the trunk, and the chauffeur that drove Hell home takes off their disguise, revealing that they are a masked purple superhero woman.
I think this is Black Orchid.
This is Black Orchid, yeah. But I just wanted to describe.
All I know is that Neil Gaiman, like one of the first comic series that Neil Gaiman wrote, like before Sand, was a miniseries about this character, I believe.
Okay.
I believe. Yeah.
I was unaware. See, it's kind of funny actually. I remember reading Justice League Dark for the first time, and there are like a few characters that are like directly pulled from this series. Black Orchid is one of them. They use Enchantress as their first main villain over there, and later on this collection uses Madame Xanadu, who shows up in Justice League Dark. So yeah, I don't know, just fun little connections like that. And also,
Ostrander loves using little characters that nobody would really care about, and then making you
it's
care
probably a
about
big
them.
reason why I love Justice League Dark as much as I do.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so we get to our briefing. Amanda Waller tells the squad about William Hell and finding out who he really is, because Black Orchid was working for Waller, and in this briefing also we meet a character called Kronos, which is just this random addition to the team for this one issue. I just find him kind of funny being there.
But what's interesting is that Waller is very much like, hey, yeah, so this man, W. James Heller, is very rich and a very right-wing businessman. He has covertly or openly funded many white survivalist, neo-Nazi, and or KKK groups, founded one of his own called the Aryan Empire. Now, who said comics weren't political before like 2016?
Probably a lot of people.
Yeah, hi. Read this and tell me it's not political, because
this
is the Suicide Squad basically versus neo-Nazis.
Yep. And interestingly, in the middle of all this, Captain Boomerang has some things to say. Amanda Waller initially saying he's talking about William Hell, says he's vowed to clean the area of street crime, drug pushers, and so forth. His arrests, however, have consisted entirely of minorities, blacks, Asians, Latinos. To which Boomerang says, "Well, that only stands to reason, don't it? I mean, it's a well-known fact. They do most of the crime, innit?"
That is both a neo-Nazi and just standard right-wing talking point to this day.
I've heard that in like IRL, like people have just said that, and it's like, are you fucking kidding me? And to which Bronze Tiger, again, the only black man on the team, says the only known criminals I see here, my man, are white. Boomerang says, I'm talking street crime here, Tiger, me lad. We're different, ain't we? I mean, I don't see no bloody. I don't even want to say that. I don't want to say that.
Slur for an Aboriginal person.
Okay, I'm not sure. I wasn't sure what he was trying to say at first. Being an artist like old Kronos here, can you? And we move on from that point. But it's interesting, isn't it?
Well, it's prescient, it's direct, and I'm glad Ostrander isn't sugarcoating it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he's taken his bullet, put it in his gun, and he's firing. He's getting right to the point. And that's what the rest of this issue will do, and it's why the issue works just so well.
To the point where on the next page, there's like McDonald just draws a straight up swastika, because we learned that in Heller's family, there were literal like neo-Nazis, like Nazis directly after World War II even, that like were just part of his family that he knew. His grandfather, I think they call it James Heller, who as they describe it, they don't actually say Nazi until the second bubble here, but the first bubble says James Heller the elder, Billy's grandfather, became his guardian. Family always was conservative, but the old man was reactionary.
which again, this came out in 1987, yet feels very predictive of how the internet and the right wing on the internet would radicalize itself so much, and to just make itself so that now we are currently in a political era where we have literal fascists in power in places like Italy, and we have to get political, for as Joey and I are both American, literal fascists in the House of Representatives, and the Senate. Like this is a threat, and it's very cathartic to see Ostrander just calling a spade and doing it very well.
It's so interesting when we talk about like writers of the time period that were really tackling these issues, people like Alan Moore, Ostrander is rarely ever brought up in the conversation, and I have no clue why.
He should. I think because people have.
Probably because he wasn't writing like as like massive runs like Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. Like this didn't really get huge on the DC Comics radar. Nor was as Ostrander's Firestorm. Like he wrote like more like just quiet titles in their catalog and didn't really get huge with them. So maybe that's why he's not brought up in conversation much. But I think he should be. But anyway, the first part of the squad's plan here is to stage a crime. Boomerang fighting Bronze Tiger dressed up in this green and yellow spandex outfit,
which is over the top. And this is where you get some of Ostrander's best humor, because Boomerang has the speech. Wipe out the old mate. I, Captain Boomerang, am glad to have returned to Central City with my old nemesis, the Flash, no longer here. Oh yeah, because Barry's dead at this point. Yep. I'm guessing Wally isn't necessarily the Flash at this point, at least in Central. I am free to use my trick boomerangs and amazing skills to knock over this bleeding armored car. Just like
Jacob, I just want you to know. I just looked up our stats. Less than 1% of our audience is Australian. We're gonna lose that less than 1%, Jacob.
Okay,
listen. We're gonna lose it.
look! I am just reading his dialogue as it is phonetically written, sir.
But I love it though. Like Bronze Tiger responds, like, "Who writes your dialogue?" It's great. But then William Hell swoops in and he stops them as he did the robbers before, and he lets Boomerang go and turns in Bronze Tiger to the police. But the police are in fact disguised Nightshade and Rick Flag, who free him immediately. And then I love this though. I don't know if you had put together before this point in the issue that Floyd and William Hell look very much alike. It like if you like put that mask over them, that they have like the same facial hair.
Yes, but I had noticed it, but I don't think I'd actively noticed it. But here's where we basically get a protest, basically following the fascist playbook of calling out degeneracy. It's not perhaps as expansive as modern day fascists, but the hints are there. Like he's giving, like there's this speech, and since the Civil Rights Act, what have we seen? We have seen the institutionalization of the welfare state. We have seen the pervasiveness of drugs and pornography. We have seen the standards of our universities eroded to accommodate the illiterate, the uneducable. In short, we have not seen them raised to our level, but rather they have dragged our society down to theirs.
And interestingly, this character that Jacob is quoting right now is not William Hell. This is just somebody that William Hell has empowered by being who he is.
Also, it's obviously not intentional, but it's very interesting that their symbols are a red sort of face mask. My brain was like, oh, this is, oh look, it's a Trump rally in 1987. Because like in that first panel, it kind of looks like it. Yeah. It really does. And what's great is that Ostrander's not sugarcoating it. He's saying it out loud, and he's basically showing like here's the safe rhetoric, but pairing it right with the unsafe rhetoric, you should recognize that the safe rhetoric isn't safe. It is you are advocating fascism and bigotry.
And then in the middle of this very real issue, it gets kind of comic booky and fun because another William Hell arrives on the stage as William Hell is here. So two William Hells on the stage at the same time, and they believe that the other is the imposter. And so Boomerang gets in the middle of it all. It's like, hey, well, we have to settle this. Who's the real William Hell? And they do William Tell, so they tie Boomerang to a tree and they put an apple on his head, and they need to see like who is the real William Hell by having perfect aim, and because it's Deadshot, who is the other William Hell, who gives this speech beforehand, to sort of like calm down the rally. Um, he is the one that gets the apple, of course, and the real William Hell cannot do it. So there's this fight that breaks out between the two of them. They depose of the real William Hell, and one of the like rally supporters who is just, I forget who is disguised there. Which one was it? Some squad member pretends to shoot Deadshot in the back. So the fake William Hell is dead. The real William Hell is in prison, and that's about that. It's a nice little end to the issue. And they try to explain afterwards. I don't know. This part didn't click with me. How Kronos was involved in the whole thing, and I didn't quite get it.
No,
with this like purple device that Enchantress is holding. Like, I don't know. I don't get it. It's weird.
The idea is that I think the idea is that they like stopped time for everyone except for Bronze Tiger, right? So he could make sure that that Hellers both didn't shoot the apple.
Okay, I feel like you didn't need that though.
But you really,
I feel like Heller could have just missed. Like simple as, I don't know. Anyway, but we do get this nice little conversation at the end here between them all, and it just sort of like put a nice little cap on the issue. You know what?
It also has one very nice final thing to say about Bigots in Power is that there's really nothing that they can prosecute him on, that he'll get away, but he's been convicted in the court of public opinion, which is nicely optimistic. And it ends on the site. It just ends on this really nice idea of that you still have to be vigilant about fascists like this because they always come back. And it's a beautiful end to a beautiful issue.
Yeah. But then we go into issue 5, which is the start of I'd say probably our main story of the collection, which is our big 3-part arc called Flight of the Firebird, as we go into issue 5 here. And it has like this nice little like movie poster introduction.
Yes.
Flight of the Firebird, a John Ostrander, Luke McDonnell, and Bob Lewis production. Robert Greenberger, director, which I think is great. Titles by Todd Klein Incorporated. Color by Carl Gafford Studios. Starring the Penguin, Nightshade, Deadshot, and the Enchantress with a big poster with Rick Flag on it. Like, I love that. I think it's a great opening.
It's wonderful. And this is where we get Ostrander being all, fuck the Cold War. We're going into, we start in Moscow. And we have, okay. Again, because this is the 80s, we have actual historical figures, like, and real people interacting with the superheroes. Like, Gorbachev is here. Which, I mean, that's just a weird thing to say, right, in your comic book. Now we have Gorbachev.
Gorbachev. That's great. But yeah, we're talking about this political prisoner named Zoya Trigorin,
who wrote a book called The Firebird, which is basically, apparently an anti-nuclear war work.
And so she has spoken out against the state, so she has been imprisoned, and that's our setup here, pretty much.
Also, her father was also a political prisoner who died in a gulag, implied years ago. Again, very weird to just have like the actual like Russian Soviet politicians being characters here as our setup. Which is great. But
then we catch up with the squad, and Oswald Cobblepot is being inducted into the squad pretty much. And I gotta know your reaction to that because it's pretty great.
I was like, okay, it actually makes kind of sense. And you need someone like Cobblepot who is kind of a genius inventor. At least if you take his, several umbrellas into account. Because he's a character who does trick umbrellas. And that's the penguins. That's the penguins thing. And what's interesting is, the squad wants to go in to try to take Trigorin out of the Soviets and basically rescue her as a political prisoner. Which, again, we have some very, very interesting things. Ostrander outright calls out the U.S. interference in countries like Nicaragua through Waller. Meanwhile, Flag is worried about the Enchantress.
Yes, and we catch up with her, June, talking to Dr. Legrive at the same time. She I love this moment here, where we see like Enchantress sort of start to break through in just June's regular personality.
Yeah, it's this very nice, subtle shift in the way June is drawn initially, and then you eventually see like the actual eyes change.
Yeah.
Like
the idea being that the more that the Enchantress is unleashed from June Moon, the more that the Enchantress will become a part of her.
Yes.
And I just love that idea and how haunted June is by that. It's just such a great character. I love it.
And she's clearly like she's trying to be a good person, which again adds to sort of the just what makes the team of the Suicide Squad work is that you have someone like June who is tortured but really wants to be a good person to play off some like awful shitty people. And she can she breaks down at this and it's genuinely sad.
But meanwhile, over in New Orleans, Captain Boomerang has his apartment.
And okay, I love that Deadshot's just like one, it's implied that the entire squad now have their own apartments. Which I imagine they have to be under like some sort of house arrest, right? Because they're all criminals.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But the only person who's still at the prison is Deadshot, and even he's still, let out to visit Boomerang.
Yeah.
I love this scene. Also, it's mainly to establish Boomerang as not going on this next mission.
Which part of me is sad about because I would have loved to have seen Digger just interact with some of the characters in Russia.
Yes, it would have been delightful.
Yeah, but actually going on this mission is pretty much our main squad. Everyone except Boomerang, and I think that's about it, right?
Yeah,
and plus Penguin's here now too.
Yes, so. Penguin is basically taking Boomerang.
And he's part of like all three issues. Like he's not just here for the one, which is great. Like I love that. But yeah, so also just it creates this interesting thing where we sort of imply that with Penguin being here, like because they call it that like we last saw him in a Batman annual, and
yes,
and so it creates this great implication that like instead of a writer like writing it every time like oh yeah the Penguin or Joker broke out or Riddler broke out or Two-Face did this to get out of prison, like it's just we could have this in the background and they just get their sentences commuted and they're set free after this. And I like that idea.
It's really cool. These are like the most spy film espionage type issues. Like everyone's in disguises to infiltrate, to infiltrate the Soviet ambassador, like sort of their home, I guess. Like you have June as like a maid. The Penguin dressed up as a chef. Which makes me wonder, can Oswald Cobblepot cook?
I hope so.
I hope so.
But yeah, so they all start going out.
They switch disguises. The Penguin has to disguise himself as like a Russian monk.
Yeah. He also has this little fake beard on now too that I love.
It's hilarious. Which just
Also worth noting, he's written in his dialogue boxes. He has like the little like wah 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 things written in there, and
I
like
heard Burgess Meredith.
it's Burgess Meredith. Yeah, like anytime any writer actually writes him with the little penguin noises in his dialogue, I can only hear Burgess Meredith.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's what he is right now, and I love the idea of Burgess Meredith in the middle of this highly political espionage mission doing this. I just think it's hilarious. Like I think it's
here's the thing. Meredith as an actor could pull off this, right?
He could, but not him playing the penguin.
Not as the penguin. So it's specifically Burgess Meredith as the penguin.
Yeah.
And I love.
He's great. He's so great. I love June's disguise here. Actually, June looks very nice in her little disguise. Anyway,
Penguin also makes an alcohol pun about Black Russians, which is just I kind of chuckled at that.
It's kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so the Nightshade makes a portal for us. We go over to this Russian train station. They're working their way through here. Basically, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get to the prison so they can break Trigorin out of there.
Yes.
And that's what a lot of this next segment is. It's actually fairly dialogueless until they get to the forest.
Yeah. I love this thing where it's, the penguin dressed as a priest, right? Still keeps his monocle on.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they even say that like when they're like in the train station, right? They're like, who told him to keep his monocle on?
I love the idea of the penguin not being good at this because post-crisis penguin is pretty much a businessman, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Like
when they started taking the character more seriously, like that's what they did. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, why would he be good at espionage?
Yeah.
I
love it. He's just a fun little like stupid addition to the team, and I love that. That's one of my favorite things about the Suicide Squad is you can pretty much take any DC Comics villain and throw them on the team and just have some fun with it.
Yes. But they get on this train, and you feel the tension. The colors here have this really nice blue, obviously to indicate that it's night, but like it adds this. It helps add to the tension, and make things feel real. Because they eventually find the psychiatric hospital, where apparently the Penguin is the one who made the plan on how they're going to get in and escape, right? Like, which is again utterly ridiculous.
I love it. And so to start to they get the signal to start moving with their plan. June unleashes the Enchantress, and I love this like third of a page panel at the top here. How Enchantress is drawn, just looks so menacing, despite being just like a generic witch's costume. Like it looks great. But yeah, anyway, so they move on through the forest. Enchantress is meant to fly Rick. She's taking Rick, right?
No, I think she's.
Oh no, she's taking Nightshade.
Yeah,
that's right. She's taking Nightshade away. Meanwhile, inside the hospital, in the hospital, this doctor is talking to I guess the warden here.
Warden of the psychiatric hospital.
Yeah. Which is where, of course, Trigorin is being held.
Asking to bring her to the office. Meanwhile, she's woken up. Enchantress and Nightshade are trying to fly in. And this is something that he was obviously going to mess up the plan because the idea is, she should probably be in her cell to get them out.
And so this doctor sort of like catches on. I love this little bit where he says like, "Very well, comrade doctor, I go." And then like in his little thought bubble, it says like, "But I will not go far." And so the idea is that he's staying outside of the office. Enchantress and Nightshade get through, and they're working with the warden here. Who is the warden here? Do they say
it's Nemesis?
It is Nemesis. Oh my god. Anyway, so yeah,
it's why Nemesis exists, like in this series, just to do disguises. And he's just as a character, I find him like dull. Like,
yeah,
he's
I get
boring.
That. Yeah, I get you. But anyway, so we find out that Trigorin does not want to be broken out. That she basically wants to be a martyr here, and wants to pretty much die for her cause in this
And it's
hospital.
not even just dying for her cause, it's also like, keeping the attention on the injustices of the Soviet Union, which I think is a very smart decision
Mhm.
on Ostrander's part. As well as it makes things, go things going wrong, it makes it work really well. And the issue ends with the doctor bursting in. Bursting in. It's like, are you finished yet with the? It's like, my God, guards, guards. I don't know what Bohemo means. I'm guessing it's like my God or something. Um,
Yeah. We go into issue 6 here. Issue 6 is actually probably my favorite cover of the collection.
yeah. Oh,
I
I love.
really love this Deadshot one. It's
It's a.
so good.
I think
Um,
my favorite is issue 1, but that might just because it's kind of iconic.
that's
Uh,
fair. That's fair. I love this first page of the issue though. We go outside and we see Flag, Deadshot, and Penguin watching this explosion from inside the hospital, and the credits for this are like across the
it's the
tree
trees.
branches. Like I love
Uh,
that.
I
It's
also
so
love
cool
the issue's called "Hitting the Fan" because the next two
for
issues.
a comic that can't say shit.
Yes. Because the Comics Code Authority is still a thing, which is a shame. Uh, you know, Penguin gets mad because everything's it's the plan called for
I
stealth.
I really should have done an EGAD count because he says EGAD so many times
He
throughout
does.
this. In fact, it's the only word he says in his little cameo at issue 3.
Yes. I
I
mean,
think he's always had like a little bubble after that, but still, he even says it there, and it's like, okay, it's a weird thing for him to say, but again, just adding to the Burgess Meredith vision in my head.
um,
But
yeah,
yeah,
we
Enchantress and Nightshade and Trigorin, I'll leave, or sorry, no, not Enchantress. It's just Trigorin, Nightshade,
yeah,
and
because
Nemesis.
Enchantress is going rogue.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, basically,
Deadshot then takes Enchantress down by shooting her, like grazing her head. Basically, I think he says. What is it?
yeah,
Where did he hit her?
intentionally. Because Flag is going to shoot him if he ends up killing Enchantress.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so they're trying to scarp her, basically because everything is losing it. Um,
Well, yeah, because the plan has basically gone to hell because nobody even checked that Trigorin wanted to be broken out.
yes. Um, Nemesis Nemesis basically shouts Enchantress into becoming June Moon again, which is kind of interesting.
Hmm.
Um, Also, they're, they're kind of blaming June for blowing the mission.
And it's like he can't really do that. It was Enchantress the whole time. Like she's an
Yeah,
entirely separate personality.
yeah, an entirely separate person.
Yeah,
Like the physical changes from June to Enchantress
yeah,
make that clear. Like even the clothes change, right?
yeah.
Um, so yeah, Russian Soviet soldiers basically attack them, and it's essentially a chase through the woods. Um, you have this image for one tiny panel of Penguin trying to escape, and all he's saying is, the wah 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 wah. Like
It's so fun.
I
It's
imagine
so
he just
funny.
says that as he's walking.
It's so good.
Um,
But they're all trying to escape. They hitch a ride in the back of this truck here. Um, that's being driven by Nemesis, and so they all get inside there. Everyone's trying to escape. Um, and we get this little line from Trigorin here, where Flag asks if everyone's okay. She's like, "No, you have compromised me. To me is oh, that's right. It's written like a broken English. You have compromised me. To me, it is important to remain. I remain Firebird, symbol of oppressive Soviet policies. Never was I asked if I wanted to come west. You come and you take me, and now I must flee for my life. My words of defiance are made lies." Which is such a strong message for this character. Like, oh,
yes.
I love it. It's so fascinating. But yeah, so they drive away. They go into they're still being chased by these Russian soldiers. Um, I love this bit here. Where does Deadshot get like this bazooka thing from?
With that ridiculously large sight, like it's so big. Like
And so he fires on this other truck. He takes out these Russian soldiers. He does it again. Um, Penguin tells them to stop. They get rid of all these soldiers that are chasing them. They drive over to this other train station then, and sort of like take stock basically. Um, Once again, you pointed it out, and now I'm thinking about it more and more. There's another editor's note here talking about what happened last issue, and like they're referencing things from last issue.
It's like that just happened, and this is
Yeah.
an immediate
It's weird by now. Like I don't think it was too weird back in issue 3, but it's weird now, especially when it's in the middle of a 3-part story.
Yeah. And a 3-part story that if you even just look at that, you pretty much look at like the covers, you can tell, like, especially if you're reading it, like they immediately follow. Like issue 5 has this note of mission to Moscow. This one shows the Enchantress and Deadshot sites.
Yeah, this would be the only cover that I think looks different from the others. Because I remember actually, fun little thing about collecting single issues, and you don't know what stories are contained within each one. I got issue 6 isolated by itself, and I had no clue what was going on because it was just a Deadshot cover, and there wasn't any indication as to what was going on inside the issue.
But still, like, you probably would have assumed by the time you got to this page.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What they're talking about probably happened in issue 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're taking stock of the train station. Nightshade, gets them, gets them through. Deadshot is sent
in this kind of funny little moment. Rick Flag comes through in his regular yellow shirt, and then he just goes right back into a disguise like 2 pages later.
Yes. I think it's because he gave his disguise.
Oh, he gave it to Trigorin. That's right.
Yeah. So she can be, not cold, though. It's the middle of winter, I believe. So everyone's cold. So Deadshot's trying to find, a place on the train for everybody.
They decide that they need to split up basically because there's not enough room. So Nightshade needs to get them through to this other train, and that she needs to take her and another person over there to it, but she needs to see inside it first. So they do that. It's decided that she has to go in there with Nemesis, and they eventually do. And there's this nice little moment where Nemesis realizes that Nightshade is in love with Rick Flag, and that he doesn't really notice. It's just this nice little moment. Like Nemesis, he doesn't like take it as an opportunity for for her being vulnerable or anything. It's just like he just acknowledges it, and it's a nice moment. I appreciate it. It's cool.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a sign of mutual respect between the characters.
Yeah,
which is.
Ostrander isn't creating a love triangle or anything. Like he's just saying like, hey, like this is just another character that knows about her feelings for Rick.
It also goes well just to how well he's established all of these characters, that some of them clearly that it makes sense that some of them would have mutual respect for one another, others wouldn't. Like, say, Boomerang being the bastard that he is.
Yeah, nobody respects Boomerang. Like literally nobody.
Literally nobody. But they make it to Moscow in the morning. They are making it to a rendezvous. Nightshade. I think the implication is that because of the cold, she's getting sick, and that's affecting her powers. That's the implication. But they're trying to get to the embassy where Bronze Tiger is.
So they go over there. They're met by this ambassador, pretty much, and he like tells them that they've like they like broken all kinds of laws, that they're going to face punishment for it. And that's it. It's an odd end to the issue. It's not as big a cliffhanger as I think the issue thinks it is. Yeah.
But yeah, they have 30 minutes to decide if they're going to turn if they're gonna, if they can turn themselves over, or they will be turned over to themselves. So they have 30 minutes to decide, and it's, we end on this, nice bunch. So tell me, Flag, what do you want to do now?
Bringing us into issue 7. Now, you every now and then just have to laugh at some obscure DC Comics characters. And I know you had to appreciate the People's Heroes, who are established DC characters. They did exist before this issue.
Leave it to Ostrander to use the most obscure heroes, because we're doing a story set in the Soviet Union.
Yes. So these are the people's heroes. They're dressed in these big brown suits with the red stars on them. They're gorgeous. I love them.
Um,
Yeah. We
so
we mentioned that they've popped up in both The Outsiders and Firestorm fairly recently, and like again, they're established characters. It's just funny. I love it. They have some great names too. Oh, there's Hammer and Sickle, of course, because why wouldn't there be Hammer and Sickle? What are the
you
other ones'
see,
names? Isn't one of them Molotov?
yes,
Yeah,
um,
it's
they're
great. I love it.
um, yeah, but they're trying to find um, they're trying to find Trigorian, um, and they're going to come across the Suicide Squad, but they don't immediately because the Suicide Squad is still locked in the American embassy.
Mhm.
We find out 15 minutes have passed, and Penguin's annoyed that he hasn't heard other options. Deadshot uh, takes the rational conclusion that the hell with it, let's just shoot ourselves. Which I mean, yeah, it's like well, maybe we'll find other options.
Mhm.
It's like
They didn't then find out about this they start to like hatch a plan. They find out about this this like tourist group, this American tourist group that's over in here. And I love this little sequence where Deadshot like breaks into like two of these tourist rooms. They steal their clothes, they lock them in a closet, or no, they just kick them out. They steal their clothes and they realize that there are like a bunch of other American tourists there too. um and what Deadshot immediately does is he like grabs his gun and Flag stops him from going just to kill these other tourists to get their clothes and stop them
stops him
from
with
being
an
witnesses.
ashtray.
Yeah. Great little fight between them. What they decide to do in the end is not kill the tourists. So that's
No,
nice.
because that would cause several international incidents. Um,
And we then go over to New Orleans again in this once again hilarious sequence where Black Orchid shows up and and like Captain Boomerang is like bragging with what he thinks is I'm guessing a prostitute, um, and he's like bragging that he doesn't have to like go do this job or whatever. At which point Black Orchid reveals herself to be in disguise and she knocks him out and takes him away. It's just it's funny. I don't know. Yeah.
and, I love some of her dialogue. She calls him Boomervoo, like
It's so
Boomer
good.
Roofonis. How do you say unhooked?
It's
Right,
so
there's this
good.
fat lady who wants to get a hold of me, and I ain't interested. And
It's
it's just
so
like
funny.
she's work. Boomerang is such an idiot. Like I love seeing him kidnapped.
Mhm.
It's a great sequence because at this point, because the idea is that the squad in Moscow have also gotten a message out to Waller because Penguin is good with computers. Um,
Mhm.
uh, so the squad's able to get on a train, pretending to be tourists. The Penguin
And the train
wearing
train is then attacked by the people's heroes. Um, and fight breaks out. Black Orchid brings Boomerang over to join the fight, and Bronze Tiger. They're all here to help the squad fight the people's heroes as they've knocked out Nemesis, it seems, and
yes.
um, and the fight breaks out, and it's a nice little fight sequence. McDonald once again just really does nail these fight scenes. Um,
Oddly enough, he doesn't do like a whole lot of like big spreads. They're all done in fairly small panels.
yeah, so you
Um,
could tell like all the action that's going on each page. Um, so June at one point is pinned down by Pravda, um, and she transforms into Enchantress to fight her off. Um, Meanwhile, the rest of the squad is taking on the other people's heroes. Enchantress, I think, just straight up kills this one, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
she just kills Pravda, which is so fucked up. At first she's like searing her body or whatever, and then drops like a bunch of rocks at her and entombs her, and you see her hand hanging out. It's just, ugh, it's fucked up. Um, I love that Boomerang is the one that takes on Sickle.
With his boomerang, and he's overly protective of his boomerang.
Yeah.
Like it's not just a children's toy, um, but like he knocks out her, like he breaks her sickle. Uh,
Mhm.
Also, he says Sheila, which I wonder if Ostrander has actually met an Australian person in real life.
I hope not.
I hope not. Um, but he's larger than life, and I love it.
He's wonderful. But yeah, they're then attacked by these, I guess, Russian helicopters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in this attack, Trigorin is shot. She's dying.
Nemesis is exhausted.
Karen arrives to help them out of there. They all start to fly away. Left behind is of course Trigorin, who does actually die, and Nemesis is left behind too. So we have to deal with that then as well.
Yes.
And that is that. We end up on this nice little scene that like establishes that that Trigorin has still become the martyr that she wanted to be, and that's the end of that. That's the
end. And the Russian government believes that we have made the Firebird immortal, so nobody's won.
Yeah,
and then. Like, I love that as an ending, right? Like, this is the time where the squad losing feels like there's better impact than, say, in issue 3. Because issue 3 was they're in over their heads because they're fighting the female Furies, who, are clearly more powerful than them.
Yes.
Yes. So it's very nice. But we then move into what is another contender for one of the best issues of the collection. Personal Files,
which is where we focus in on the team psychiatrist, Dr. Legrieve. And I don't know why I imagined him with a really dry British accent. I'm probably wrong about that, but I don't know.
He's probably American.
I don't care. He has a dry British accent in
my head. Look, I have seen British television shows give American characters British accents. We can have this be a thing.
I'll take it. Yes. But at first we flat. So he's talking about like how he's been studying the files of Task Force X. And he's just going over them. We can flash back to when he first met Amanda Waller, which just seems to be like how he got involved with all this
at a community health center in Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which I think that's it helps humanize both him and Waller. Just as people on the ground.
Yeah.
And Waller is someone who's the idea is that she's holding on to the anger from the death and destruction of her, basically her entire family, and using that basically to keep moving forward, which isn't necessarily healthy, but for Amanda Waller, it's what drives her forward.
Yeah, we learn what has been going on with Amanda across these last 3 issues because we haven't really seen her since the beginning of issue 5. She goes to confront one Dexter Tolliver, who is pretty much the guy that set them up on this suicide mission because he was the guy that never vetted Trigorin to know she actually wanted this to happen. He's basically the one that sent the squad out on their first proper suicide mission. And because he has misinterpreted the goal of Task Force X, it seems they are expendable, so he has taken them on something that there would typically be no way in hell that they could actually survive. And so Amanda's pissed about this. She goes to confront him. She punches him in the face. It's pretty great.
He deserves it. And we get this line of I love this line from Waller. They are considered expendable if necessary, Tolliver. They are not meant to be thrown away on garbage missions like this one. Who authorized this fool mission besides you, Tolliver? You can see that care. It's not like it's a genuine care, but not in the typical sense, right?
Yeah, definitely.
They have a purpose, and she's not going to lose her people with that purpose.
Yeah.
And we have the anger. The idea is that Tolliver wants to cover his ass and he thinks he knows how, setting up stuff for the future, I'm guessing.
Yeah. We then go over to Rick Flag, who is of course yelling at Amanda for obvious reasons. He wants to get Nemesis out of Russia, and Amanda does not want to send anyone out for that.
He doesn't want another suicide mission. Karen comes in to twist the knife of you left two behind in the Himalayas. You abandoned me while I suffered, while I had my nervous breakdown. Which is it's an interesting position, and it makes sense for her to have this position, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But even if it's not entirely accurate, that he was essentially pushed away by her doctors.
Mm-hmm. But then the room is met by this wonderful character named the Privateer, Mr. Mark Shaw. I gotta know your reaction, like when you first saw him.
My brain was like, okay, this is going insane.
It pretty much leads to this immediate fist fight between Flag and him, and Flag and him. They just immediately hate each other.
For each other, and it ends with Flag beaten on the ground, and it turns out, you need to. It's like you need to be your best if you're to face ones who were trained by the Manhunters, which. Because I knew issue 9 was going to be a Millennium.
It's leading into Millennium, yeah, and thankfully you already know that it's a Manhunter story because of our Wonder Woman readings.
Yes, which is great and interesting. And Waller relieves Flag of his command temporarily.
Yeah, he has been broken by this mission to Russia. He's clearly pissed about Mark Shaw and Karen.
And it's the right decision.
Yeah.
Karen
she just doesn't seem like fit for duty right now.
Karen immediately starts flirting with Shaw.
Yeah.
And that just twists the knife even more.
Mm-hmm.
But yes.
We then go over to catch up with Bronze Tiger and June Moon, who go to see one Madame Xanadu. Did you know Madame Xanadu at all?
You've mentioned her.
Okay, gotcha. Did I mention her on our DC Cinematic Universe video?
Yes.
That I wanted her on like the Justice League Dark team.
Yeah. I know you like this character.
She's great. She doesn't get too much to do here, but I do like the scene that she has here.
Yeah, it's one scene just to try to do like use psychic powers to deconstruct the Enchantress as a character. I don't know. There's something about the characters also just set up that I really love. It feels very New Orleans.
Yeah,
but
they put like this like necklace around Enchantress around June, and it like sets off the Enchantress. Xanadu then like forces Enchantress to like back down and transform back into June. Basically just establishing what we already do. There's nothing you could really do about Enchantress and her connection to June. It'll only get worse, really.
But this ring that they're given, and is entrusted to Bronze Tiger, is basically going to be used to not necessarily to control her, but to keep her, to rein her in, at least the Enchantress persona, which is dangerous.
Yeah, and it's not really going to change how Enchantress interacts with June, but there is at least some form of control.
Yeah. And it's also implied that this is also a temporary fix. That this is, it's the more Enchantress you use, the stronger she will get, the more influence she will have over her other persona. She will get more cunning. In both personas, they may merge. It's going to be interesting. It's basically setting up a powder keg character who's going to go off.
But we then go over to what Deadshot has been up to, and he's been meeting with an associate of Legreve's. What is her name? I forget her name. Marnie Hers.
Yes.
And
she's Legreve's assistant.
And they have quite the interesting conversation here. We learned that Marnie has been spending a lot of time with Floyd lately. And all we get in this scene is really Floyd's thought process on women, which is certainly interesting. It just shows really just how fucked up he is and how he views the world, not just women in this case, but it's a comment on his view of the world in general, I think.
And that he can't have a healthy social relationship, like in any case,
Mhm.
which is interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
He like calls her out. He's like, he's like, you're a pro too. All this caring, it's what you're paid to do. You're just another pro. At which point she slaps him. There's a moment of silence between them. They kiss, and he pushes her off and walks out.
and it's like this never happened.
And it's interesting. And we see like Marty is upset by this, and it's an interesting point to leave that relationship at. But we then catch up with Mirror Master. Now, I'm assuming you know of Mirror Master, right?
I know of Mirror Master. He appeared in the Flashpoint adaptation specifically.
That is true. That's true. They have that whole like rogues gallery thing at the start of the movie.
Yes. They've also been using his technology in the Red Hood and the Outlaws webtoon that I've been reading.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Which is very interesting.
Nice. But I really should read those.
It's good.
What is the team there? What do they use then?
They use Jason, Artemis, and Bizarro.
Oh, see, I don't like the Rebirth team. All right.
Well, it's very fun, and it's a very interesting character study for all three characters. But that's besides the point.
Anyway, so yes, we catch up with Mirror Master, and we learn in fact that Mirror Master is actually dead, and that Captain Boomerang has stolen Mirror Master's costume and tech, and is masquerading as Mirror Master.
And it turns out Mirror Master died in Crisis. So...
Yes, he did. A lot of characters died in Crisis. You shouldn't be surprised by this information.
We shouldn't. We shouldn't.
But yeah, so that's what Captain Boomerang's up to. Nobody knows that he's doing that.
It's
and
basically his outlook, because Boomerang just has to do crime. He's compelled just to do shitty things, which is interesting for the character. Like it's fascinating.
Yeah, and then we have this great note where Legrive is met by his wife, and she's like another sleepless night. They hug each other. They go. She's gonna make him breakfast, and he says he thinks to himself, whatever else happens, I know I don't face it alone. And it's a nice little note to end the collection on. And yes. I actually pointed out to you that I think you agree with this, that like I think this volume in general has a similar structure story wise to the first volume of New Teen Titans.
Which is a great way to get people invested in your series, right? With 8 issues like this. Totally. I don't think it'll continue like this, because I know there are more issues we're covering next time.
Yeah, it's an 11 issue collection next time, and there's even like another double length in there. So
yes, because one of them is basically an annual. But what I think has been especially just interesting is how strong the collection is.
Yeah. I'm glad that you took to this series as much as you did.
I was worried at the beginning that, what if I don't like this? Because, it could very well not have been my thing. I find series where all the protagonists are just terrible people a lot harder to get into.
I do disagree with that. I think that could be some of the most interesting character work out there.
It can be, but it's often done poorly. And Ostrander does not do it poorly. He's fascinating. Okay. He also keeps a couple of characters who I would say are good guys. Like, I'd argue Rick Flag. True. Rick Flag, at least as he's set up here, is a decent
those
person.
Those good guys also have their own set of issues. Yeah.
I would
say actually Ben Turner is probably the most good guy here.
The most moral person. I'd say June is also there, divorced from her Enchantress persona.
Yeah. But June is like half the person.
So. Yes, is half the person. So that was that. We also
watched a movie for this episode.
Yeah.
We watched Suicide Squad 2016. Which you had never seen before, and you watched the extended cut of it, right?
Yeah. I have a lot of notes.
Look, you don't have to go through all of them.
I don't. The movie it was bad. I did not like the movie. I
don't hate it personally. It has some nice moments, and the casting is great.
I will say the casting is great. I think Margot Robbie is the one who goes in and out of that movie the best. Where like she's trying her hardest to make this work.
Yeah. Yeah. And she
Um,
works with what she's given. And also, I do disagree with your point that Will Smith is just playing Will Smith. I disagree with that.
it's just hard to see Will Smith and like there. I think part of it is also there are bits where the dialogue is just like god awful. Like it,
Okay.
there were bits where the dialogue reminded me of Chris Chibnall's Doctor Who, like where it's describing things that we are watching happen on screen. Um,
I
like,
get that. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's very weird.
Ooh, how great is Viola Davis as Amanda Waller though?
Viola Davis takes every scene that
I
she's
fucking
in
I
and
love that
steals
scene
it.
when I love that scene when they find her in the bunker. Um and she just like kills all those guys that she's down there with. Like just absolute badass that she is.
She's great. I think you may have a okay film buried in even in the extended cut that I watched if you basically remove a lot of the first 40 minutes. Um, remove so one of the big problems is that the characters keep being introduced like again and again, like
Yeah, I
three
get that.
times.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
we
they mostly do it with Harley and Deadshot. They introduce him like three times. Yeah.
Yeah, you really just need one of them. Um, oh, I think what pissed me off the most is oddly enough Enchantress. Like,
Yeah, that's fair.
y-
Yeah, I like early on. I do like how they portray her struggle, but once she actually like becomes the villain of the film, she's really uninteresting.
she, and you have
Which also is another thing that we know that Warner Brothers wanted because originally I think David Ayer was going to do an Apocalypse Attack,
or like,
and
or he was going to reveal that she was being controlled by Steppenwolf is possibly what it was, which depending on what that is, like depending on how that's portrayed, that could improve the film, but it also might not. Um, honestly, it doesn't feel like the mission of what like the team is supposed to be doing is like it it feels very rushed. Like you do, like for the let's rescue Amanda Waller, which is the main drive of like the first third, like the middle third of the film. Like the film, okay, the film doesn't have a 3 act structure. It really doesn't. It has an act one that is character introductions that you can just cut completely because then there's a scene at the start of act two that has all our characters basically introduce each other, so like most of act one is now redundant.
Jacob, wait, Jacob. The film is perfect. Slipknot's in it.
No.
I look. He's like some of my favorite Suicide Squad cannon fodder in adapted media. He's perfect. I
Does
love
he
him.
get killed off in multiple pieces of Suicide Squad adapted media?
Uh, Not adapted media, but he is killed off in the comics once.
Okay. So he's just cannon fodder.
Yeah, I
Uh
love him. He's great. It
also
was really funny. I have just a fun experience with that because like everyone was like joking before the film even came out. They're like, "Oh, it's him." Like Squad fans, I'm telling you, like once you read enough comics, like, you're gonna be able to call it out immediately. Like, "Oh, it's him. He's gonna be the one that they're gonna fucking kill." And so we were all right.
I
Like the
mean
second they went on the streets there.
the way he's done in the film, it's also clear that he's
Yeah, I
because
do love El Diablo in it.
yeah, well he doesn't get a character introduction. He's just
You organically learn about him throughout the film. Like it works, I think.
yeah. Um yeah.
Um,
Like
but him and Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang is
is
like, oh,
is
he's
great.
perfect casting. And
It's
I do actually like the scene where with Ezra Miller's Flash.
oddly enough, Ezra Miller's Flash being in this was, for that minor cameo, they were fun.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. Oh
baggage.
yeah. That and the Ben Affleck
Ben
appearance.
Affleck was
Oh, did you like the post credit scene at
I,
least?
I liked I preferred Affleck in the post credit scene than necessarily him in like the
Well, he
capturing
doesn't
dead
really get to
shots.
do much in the actual
No,
present day
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Um, I don't know. They 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 imply he was going to like take down Lawton in front of his daughter, and I don't know the way that scene was shot felt weird and inserted in, and it a lot of that first third of the movie I would cut entirely.
That's
I
fair.
would I would keep I would try to keep a decent chunk of the Waller scenes because she's great. Also, just the film. I feel really bad for whoever scored the film because the score that they do use is really generic, despite this composer writing 90 minutes of underscoring for this film. Like,
Yeah. And,
and
and and a lot of the music is just replaced with pop songs.
and like some of the pop song choices are good, and they're good songs,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not really integrated well into the film. Like,
See, actually, it's interesting. I just rewatched Guardians of the Galaxy 2 last night. Um, and I was looking at that and I like the way like James Gunn uses pop songs in his things, which is clearly what Warner Brothers wanted. Like they were like, "Hey, Suicide Squad, do a Guardians thing and incorporate all this music into the film." Um, but like I was watching the way James Gunn does it in the Guardians films, and like I remember the soundtrack of Guardians as well. Like not just the pop songs they use, but the actual music in the film
yes,
is
yeah.
good too and
Well,
memorable
because
and strong.
the soundtracks, partially because at least in the first Guardians film, a decent chunk of the soundtrack music that's used, like the pop songs, are also diegetically used. Like "Come and Get Your Love" being used in the opening scene of Guardians 1 is perfect. Because it actually helps you build who Peter Quill is as a character.
And it's
And
interesting that we're making this comparison because you're gonna watch the second Suicide Squad film for the next episode,
which is directed by James
directed
Gunn.
by James Gunn, and he does the same thing. Like that music is still used in the same way. He does that in all of his films. So I'll be curious to see what you think of it there.
I imagine it's going to be better because just James Gunn generally has more control over what he's doing in a film. Because
I have my favorite one, and I won't spoil it. What scene it's used in, but do you like Louis Prima?
yes,
Okay, there's a Louis Prima song. It's the Louis Prima song.
it's going to be like Pennies from Heaven, probably.
No. Mm-mm.
No, okay, that'll be interesting.
You'll know when it comes up. It's like one of my favorite scenes in the film. It's so good.
It's good. Yeah, I think there's at least I think for Suicide Squad 2016, one, I don't necessarily think the Ayer cut exists.
I think it would change a fair few things about
I
the
think
film.
it would change things. I think it would improve the film. I don't know if it would make the film like
as it stands. Like personally, I give the film like a 5 out of 10.
I don't think it would necessarily make the film like a great film like
I
Snyder's.
think what we have could make it like, if for my personal rating, like from a 5 out of 10, maybe bring it up to like a 7 at max.
Yeah. Make it at least make it passable. I think it would make it at least competently made as a film because again, just as a film, it's not competently made. Like the first third is such a mess.
Yeah.
And just from filmmaking techniques, it's poor. There's also this may be dumb, but like anytime there's subtitles or location captions,
Oh, it's that.
the font that they use, one, is not a great font just in general to look at.
It's meant to like match the characters, I think. It's weird. It's really weird.
There are fonts you could do to make that work, but it's the anti-piracy DVD commercial font. That's what it is. It's you wouldn't steal a DVD. And like for Katana, whenever she speaks in Japanese, she's subtitled. Though
you know what? Okay, so I clearly didn't rewatch the film for this episode because okay, listeners, I made Jacob watch it as punishment. We recorded this and our bonus episode last week back to back. And after we did the bonus episode, Jacob was like, "Okay, I'm going to finish rereading the book tonight." And he was like, "I was like, and maybe I'll watch the James Gunn film." I was like, "No, do both." And you're like, "No, I'm going to do the James Gunn film." I'm like, "Okay, just because you said that, it's now mandatory that you watch the David Ayer film." And so you watched it as punishment. So I clearly didn't have the time to rewatch it. And I forgot that Katana was in the film.
Yeah, she's in the film, and
she's played by a really great actress too.
Yeah,
Karen Fukuhara. She's from The Boys. Oh, she would eventually do The Boys, I guess. And she's phenomenal.
The casting in this film is mostly good. I think some performances, like Jared Leto, I think that might be the director's
I was just gonna compliment us
like
on doing this whole conversation without bringing up Jared Leto, but you ruined that.
like I'm look. I think I can agree that a lot of the issue with Leto's performance comes down to Ayer.
Just letting him do whatever he want was the issue. Like I
Yeah.
think like if Ayer put his foot down on Leto and was like, "Hey, let's like you're doing some good things in here. Let's focus that." Because
Also, if
both,
they gave him a different, if they changed his design a bit, the design is
the tattoos are too much.
it's dumb.
I mean, and also I remember always seeing people defending the tattoos online back in there. They're like, "Oh, here's the Jim Lee thing with Joker with tattoos," and it's like that's also from All Star Batman and Robin. Fuck
Nobody likes nobody sane likes All Star Batman and Robin, the Boy Wonder.
But yeah,
and
like Leto, like there are things that work in his performance, and not a lot of it made it to the cut.
I mean, he's in every scene he shares with Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie is just acting circles around the man.
That's true, but I will say I think his best scenes in the film are the flashback scenes.
Yeah, but I feel like the flashback scenes, which you said were mostly added for the extended cut.
Yeah, the extended cut added that big one where where she's on the motorcycle and they get stopped by the truck and he kills that guy.
They work partially because they're just adapting Mad Love fairly well.
Yeah, and I do love the vat of acid scene. Like I think that they fucking nail that.
What my point is it feels like Ayer for the extended cut, for the scenes he was able to add, he was actually able to edit competently and not.
Well, that's the thing. He didn't re-edit the rest of the film. He wasn't allowed to re-edit the rest of the film.
Those individual scenes are really well done. So, like again, I don't think there would be. I don't think we're ever going to see the Ayer cut.
Oh no,
because
and again, I do think there is enough different to improve the general public's opinion of the film.
I wouldn't necessarily hate seeing it released, but to do that,
there wouldn't be enough different like there is with Zack Snyder's Justice League. With Zack Snyder's Justice League, we didn't reshot the entire fucking film.
Yeah, the entire film is
so what seems
reshot.
like the same what seems like the same scenes showing up in Zack Snyder's Justice League is really the same scenes shot entirely different, an entirely different tone, entirely different performances. It's a different film, and also it's worth noting in relation to Suicide Squad, we both agree that Leto's performance is actually pretty good in Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah, it's at least decent, and it has I'd argue more of a purpose in the main drive of the film because
and also they let Leto and Affleck actually act off each other, unlike Ayer's Suicide Squad.
It's also especially weird because the Joker's plot in Ayer's Suicide Squad, after like that 2/3 mark, he's not in the film again. Until
and actually we do know of another scene that will probably never see the light of day that I would have loved to have seen. There's another scene that supposedly is after the helicopter crash and when they're on their way to go fight Enchantress, where Joker meets them like in this like sewer area, I think, and he has that grenade that you could see the shot in one of the trailers, and he has this grenade and he like half his face is fucked up. And apparently that scene would have been really good, but I mean I don't know. I would like to see it. I would like to
which is especially weird is there's a lot of things like established early on in the film that are just dropped. Like Captain Boomerang has this pink unicorn like throughout the first third or so of the film, and we keep coming back to it, and then it just disappears.
It's funny. Come on. I like it.
It's funny, but it feels like it's trying to set up something, like because he takes it with him on the mission. We establish it. And then we never see it again after that scene. Like,
yeah, I get you.
Like, make that do something.
I know. You don't need to preach to me. I've seen the film. I was actually excited for it back when it came out, and
I will say, I am once again glad because I do with like these, especially with the live action DC films. I like to watch all the credits just to see if they do a special thanks section at the end. And I was glad to see a special thanks section. at the end.
Yeah. DC's always really good with their special thanks sections. They're great with that stuff.
Yeah.
Marvel, not so much.
Not as much.
But DC does some great stuff with their special thanks section. And did you catch the John Ostrander reference in the
film? I did. I saw the
Ostrander building or whatever.
The building, yeah.
I know I told you this already, but he does have a cameo in the Gunn film.
Yes. Which just it's even though they're not like adapting. I mean, okay, I guess they're adapting the character of Enchantress, but she's not an Ostrander creation. Though I imagine this version of Enchantress is fairly inspired by how Enchantress is portrayed by Ostrander specifically.
See, I think this Enchantress, the Enchantress in the film, is based off of the Justice League Dark portrayal.
Oh, okay. So I haven't read Justice League Dark, so I
Well, I mean, she's just a straight up villain in Justice League Dark.
Yeah.
So there's that. But anyway, I guess that does it. Wow, we talked about that film for way longer than I thought we would, and also this episode is way longer than I thought it would be.
I think this is an episode that deserves it, especially because this run is kind of underrated. Like,
yeah, definitely.
I tried to Google on YouTube if anyone talks about this run. I'm like, I really didn't find anything.
Yeah, like it's so overlooked for some reason, and it's so good.
And it's mostly still in print. And it was mostly like the collected editions are fairly recent. Like Volume 1 is 2015. I think they finished collecting it in like 2019, 2020.
So they're all out there. Go read them. They're great. It's one of my favorite 80s DC series. I love it. One of my favorite.
It's a great look into immediate post-crisis.
And the Suicide Squad as a team is my favorite comic book team ever. Like I love them. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if I can say that yet, but it's
and I wouldn't expect you to. But you know that I have a close connection with these characters.
Yes, I can at least see why you love these characters.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess that about does it. Wow. Okay, so as you guys already know, as Jacob already knows, next episode is Suicide Squad Volume 2, The Nightshade Odyssey.
We will also be talking about The Suicide Squad.
Yeah, we'll talk about that briefly. Yeah, definitely. Which I'm pretty excited to talk about. It's a great film.
I'm a bit worried because I know that this is also going to be my introduction for, like, at one point, the art of one Rob Liefeld.
That is true. He does the Secret Origins issue. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so that's gonna be fun.
That's gonna be fun.
It's not too bad in that issue if I remember rightly though. So
yeah. So
anyway, I guess let's do some promos. God damn it, I'm so lost right now. Anyway, I'm so scared to even say go follow us on Twitter.
Well, okay, if Twitter's still a thing, follow us on Twitter.
I'm at Jomo with 3 underscores. He is at Newt5996. You know what I'm actually going to do instead? I'm going to put our link trees down in the description.
Yes, we have link trees where you can follow us on other things.
For reference, the day we're recording this, Twitter just announced their policy on promoting other social media websites on Twitter, which is fucking insane. So
I think we should maybe start putting our link trees just in general in the podcast episodes, just to be safe.
Yeah, so we're gonna start putting our link trees down there. So new year, new us. We're gonna have our link trees down there instead. So yeah, link trees will be down there. Our YouTube links.
I know,
Twitter
Joey,
links.
you might be joining Hive Social. I'm already on Hive Social, though I haven't posted much there. Mainly because when I joined, they started to have some big issues because of the mass Twitter exodus. I'm also on Mastodon. I try to promote the podcast on Instagram. So just follow us in multiple places because
any links that we think are worth you following us on will be down in the description. So they're going to be there. Our link trees are there. My link tree is Jomo Blood Donut. And what is yours?
Mine, I believe, is just Newt5996. I try to keep it fairly.
Fantastic.
I try to keep it consistent.
Cool. Fantastic. All right. Well, I guess that about does it. Be sure to follow us wherever you want to follow us. Link trees are down there. As always, I will leave this book linked through an Amazon link down in the description below, as well as the next volume of Suicide Squad. That'll be down there. And I guess that about does it. Once again, Happy New Year, guys. Let's hope it's a good one. Please be a good one.
Hey, 2022, I think, was definitely a step up from 2021.
For me personally, not in the slightest, but
that's a shame. Yeah. But
it's all right. Life sucks. All right. So until next time, this has been Joey Morgan
and Jacob Licklider.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.